Great. All right, good evening, Council. I think we'll get started. So I'd like to welcome members of the public in the gallery and those joining us online to our monthly council meeting of February 18th, 2025 here in the beautiful Summerside City Hall. We have two meetings this evening. We have our planning board meeting and then our monthly council meeting. The planning board meeting will commence now and the monthly council meeting will follow. It will start no earlier than 6:30 p.m. So I'll begin by calling to order our planning board meeting at 5:33 p.m. Call for a motion to approve the agenda, planning board agenda as presented. It has to be up. Councillor Adams, yes. Now a member of planning board. Councillor Adams. Again. And Councillor Duran, second by Councillor Duran. All members of planning board present, please indicate by saying aye. Please indicate your favor, I suppose, by saying aye. Any opposed? Changes? Hearing none, the agenda will proceed as follows. The land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Abigway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. At this point, I'll ask any member of council or planning board to declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the planning board agenda. Hearing none. Before I hand it over to Councillor Duran, I would just make a note. Councillor McDougall and Councillor Cameron are both joining us electronically, so they will be able to listen and follow and also speak, and we'll just as a council make sure that at the end of each item we make sure to touch base with them so that they have the opportunity to connect and share any of their thoughts. It can be a little difficult when you're calling in. With the lights going on in your mic. With that, I'll pass it over to Councillor Duran. Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So we will begin with a recommendation for 110, 136, and 138 Rufus Street, official plan and zoning amendment. Supporting explanation, the purpose is to rescind Resolution COS 25010, COS 25012, and COS 25014. Read at a special public council meeting on February 4th, 2025, regarding the zoning bylaw amendments for 110, 136, and 138 Rufus Street. Background, an application from Cameron Apartments, Inc. was received for PID number 304188, 110 Rufus Street, PID number 304196, 136 Rufus Street, and PID number 304204, 138 Rufus Street, to amend the official planned land use from industrial land use to residential land use, and amend the zoning bylaw from light industrial M1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow a 6-unit townhouse development in the proposed R4 zone. A public meeting was held on February 4th, 2025, and council gave first reading on the same date. Report. At the public meeting on February 4th, 2025, Councillor Cameron raised a question as to why the developer was seeking high-density residential R4 zoning for the proposed townhouse development when the proposed use is permitted in the medium-density R3 zone under zoning bylaw CS 40. Staff noted that the application was received on January 16th, 2025, and along with the public meeting agenda and resolutions. At the time of application, zoning bylaw SS15 was in effect. Under zoning bylaw SS15, the zone that would accommodate a 6-unit townhouse as a permitted use was the high-density residential R4 zone. On January 28th, 2025, the city development officer was advised that the new zoning bylaw CS40 had been signed by the Minister of Housing, Land and Communities on January 23rd, 2025. Zoning bylaw CS40 was in effect at the time of the public meeting on February 4th, 2025. The applicant spoke at the public meeting and agreed to revise the application, requesting medium-density residential R3 zoning. The revised application was received by staff on February 5th, 2025. City staff consulted with a professional planner, Samantha Murphy, to provide planning advice on how the city should proceed with this application. Whether we restart the entire application process or make an amendment to the current process. The staff review is based upon the planner's advice, and the email from Samantha Murphy is attached and part of the agenda package here this evening. Staff review. The city staff recommend the first reading resolutions, COS 25010, COS 25012, and COS 2514, which were read at the public meeting held on February 4th, 2025, be rescinded, and revised first reading resolutions be read at a council meeting. As per section 5.10, part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. The planning board recommendation, resolutions COS 25010, COS 25012, and COS 2514 be rescinded by council and revised first reading resolutions be read at a council meeting. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from planning board. Councillor Trenholm. Are there any questions or concerns from planning board or any member of council? And seeing none, we will proceed with the planning board only vote to rescind those resolutions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so those resolutions will be rescinded, and we'll revisit the new resolutions later this evening. Next item, 248 MacEwen Road, restricted use. The purpose of the application is to allow a home care facility as a restricted use in the service commercial C2 zone. A restricted use requires council approval. Background: an application was received from Sean and Elizabeth Moore to allow a restricted use home care facility at 248 MacEwen Road, PID number 319244. The property is currently zoned service commercial C2 and is currently used as a tourism establishment with 6 guest rooms. The applicants are proposing to change the use of the property to accommodate a home care facility. 6 rooms complete with en-suites. The home care facility is intended for independent living with minimal supervision. Meal services may be provided. This application will require city council approval to allow a restricted use in the service commercial C2 zone. The current zone, service commercial C2 zone, the purpose of this zone is to provide for large and medium-sized commercial uses which need road frontage for ready vehicular access and advertising exposure. There is a list of permitted uses and discretionary uses and conditional uses. We did read those in last meeting. If it's okay with guidance from CAO or staff, if we don't necessarily have to read those in again. They've already been done. Okay. Report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw. When planning board reviews a restricted use, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Number 1, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, the zoning bylaw. Staff comment: a restricted use conforms with the bylaw, section 8.5, subject to council approval. The current zoning, service commercial C2, does not change. As per section 8.5E, council may attach terms and conditions to the restricted use approval. Council may revoke a restricted use approval for a violation to any term or condition attached to an approval, subject to a recommendation from the planning board. And section 8.5 of the zoning bylaw, the restricted use designation. The purpose of a restricted use designation is to manage requests for land uses that have unique characteristics, special requirements, and innovative ideas, or become of unusual site constraints, require specific regulations. B, the restricted use designation is a custom-made or fine-tuned design for one specific area or project only. It is still a legally bylawed land use, and the underlying current zoning does not change. Any changes to the uses or rules require the full public hearing, redesignation, or zoning process. C, the purpose of this designation is to accommodate single special uses, which, because of their particular nature, cannot be easily accommodated within another zone, or where rezoning would result in undesirable future land uses due to the as-of rights in that zone. D, the X designates the specific map reference for the site designated RU, and references the type of development approved for that site and recorded on a special schedule for that purpose. E, council may attach terms and conditions to the approval of a restricted use. After hearing the recommendation of the planning board, council may revoke a restricted use approval for violation of any condition attached to an approval. And F, the RU X designation is for a single use only and restricts land use to The proposed restricted use would conform to the official plan, section 5.13, as the land use will remain as commercial. The restricted use designation is to accommodate unique uses where an official plan amendment would result in undesirable land uses. Should the restricted uses cease to operate for 12 months, the restricted use lapses and the zoning remains as service commercial, C2, and can be utilized as such. The restricted use applies to the site, not the applicant. And section 5.13 of the zoning bylaw, restricted uses. The purpose of this designation is to restrict land use to a single use only, which cannot be easily accommodated within another zone or where rezoning would result in undesirable and negative impacts on the neighborhood or immediate area. A restricted use shall be tied to a specific parcel and zone. When the restricted use ceases operation, the special zoning designation will lose status and the original zoning shall apply. And council's objective is to allow restricted uses in any zone. And the following are council's statements of policy. Number 1, allow restricted uses in any zone. The underlying or current zoning of the property does not change and reverts back to the original zoning automatically when the restricted use ceases. And number 2, all restricted uses shall require a council discretionary use public process as specified in the zoning bylaw. Number 3, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, this site is currently developed and is connected to city servicing and street access. Number 4, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the property is identified as a commercial land use on the on the future land use map. The restricted use does not change land use. The restricted use home care facility is compatible with the existing use. Surrounding commercial, industrial, M1, residential neighborhood land uses. Number 5, any comments from residents or other interested persons? A public meeting was held on February 4th, 2025. The public meeting notice was advertised in the January 22nd and 28th edition of The Guardian. 6 letters were mailed to 5 property owners. Staff comment, at the public meeting, Sean and Elizabeth Moore provided an overview of the proposed intent for the restricted use. No one from the public spoke at the public meeting, and no written comments were received regarding this application. Number 6, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, and parklands for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city's water supply and sewage collection systems can handle any loading changes from the proposed restricted use home care facility. The existing street access and storm drainage is adequate for the proposed restricted use. The parking requirements will be 8 spaces, 2 for the single detached dwelling and 1 for each home care room. Number 7, impacts from the development on pedestrian or vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, there is an existing sidewalk on the east side of MacEwen Road to accommodate the pedestrian traffic for the proposed restricted use. Number 8, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, not applicable. 9, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, this application does not impact city finances or budgets. Number 10, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, not applicable. And number 11, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the restricted use approval being sought does not eliminate the requirement for a building permit for the change of building use, which is tourism establishment to a home care facility. Staff review. Staff support the application from Sean and Elizabeth Moore to allow a restricted use home care facility, 6 rooms at 248 MacEwen Road. The purpose of a restricted use designation is to allow a use which cannot be easily accommodated within another zone or where rezoning would result in undesirable and negative impacts on the neighborhood or immediate area. As per section 5.10, part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. And the planning board recommendation, the application from Sean and Elizabeth Moore to allow a restricted use home care facility, 6 rooms in the service commercial C2 zone at 248 MacEwen Road, PID number 319244, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from planning board. Councillor Adams. I was thinking who did the first one. I'll try to, I saw her hand go up. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, we will, yes, Your Worship.
I just have one for staff, and I'm just wondering if we can note a home care facility to potentially be added to any upcoming official plan or zoning bylaw housekeeping work to consider whether or not it should be considered as of right. I thought it was a little unusual that home care facilities, obviously something that we're going to need more of as our population continues to age. So it's just a flag to staff, whether we can put that on a future list.
Okay, motion on the floor. Members of Planning Board in favor, please state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes Planning Board. Next is recommendation for 134 Greenwood Drive, preliminary subdivision approval. The supporting explanation, purpose is to subdivide a portion of PID number 71191, creating 24 lots. Lots 45 to 55 and lots 77 to 89. The developer is seeking preliminary subdivision approval for phase 1 of this development. The developer is requesting a deferment of subdivision responsibilities for phase 2 and 3. The planning board is required to make a recommendation to council on this application, and preliminary approval is required by council before the development can proceed. Background: an application was received from 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide PID number 71191 into 89 lots over 3 phases. Phase 1 will consist of 24 lots. 2 lots are intended for high-density housing, and 22 lots intended for, but not limited to, semi-detached dwelling development. Phase 2 is 22 lots, and then phase 3 is 44 lots. And those 2 phases will be deferred until a later date. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on preliminary survey plan prepared by Bernard Land Surveyors, drawing number 23-012-P5, dated January 8th, 2025. Report, as required under section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, council planning board and the development officer shall consider the following general criteria when reviewing development applications under this bylaw as applicable. A, conformity with this bylaw. Staff comment: the subdivision conforms to the site development and subdivision bylaw. The subdivision layout promotes smart growth, making effective use of the land, and applies to the principle of orderly and following. The development will be subject to city standards. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the subdivision conforms to the official plan. The future land use map for the property is residential. The proposed subdivision will have impact on the Parks and Green Space Plan. The Parks and Green Space Plan from 2012, section 7.3.2 indicates a future conservation area, the Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension 810, to the existing Ice Pond Conservation Area 190. Section 7.3.3 indicates the Ice Pond Greenway 750 would run from Green Shore Park 330 to the Confederation Trail 400. The Parks and Green Space Plan identified a pedestrian connection from the Green Shore Park 330 to the Confederation Trail. Since the Parks and Green Space Plan was approved in 2012, the city has installed a sidewalk, AT lane from Green Shore Park to Pope Road. The Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension 810, the Ice Pond Greenway 750 will require further review by staff and further discussions with the developer. C, conformity with the zoning bylaw. Staff comment: the proposed lots conform with the zoning bylaw as the land is zoned a mix of medium-density, narrow lot residential, R3R, and high-density residential, R4. D, the orderly and following nature of the development. Staff comment: this development promotes residential growth and is an example of infilling vacant land currently zoned for residential development. E, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage. Staff comment: the site is suitable for development. The site has sufficient grade for drainage to Greenwood Drive and connects to existing streets at the high point. A watercourse and wetland delineation for this property was completed in July 2022 to identify any potential natural hazards or environmental matters. No development is permitted within the buffer or the areas delineated unless approved by the Department of Environment. F, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans. Staff comment, this development is compatible with the current and future surrounding patterns of streets and services. The development of the medium and high-density residential lots is intended to be developed in phases. Phase 1 is intended to be developed in 2025. Phase 2 and 3 will be considered once Phase 1 is nearing full development. The existing public street network and municipal services can be extended to this development. A street connection to Valley Street and Lockwood Drive will be provided to accommodate Phase 2 and Phase 3. G, adequacy of the applicant's proposals for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads. Staff comment, the proposed street layout meets conformity to complete connections to existing streets, Valley Street and Lockwood Drive, to allow for through traffic and emergency access from 2 locations, South Drive and Greenwood Drive. The layout addresses safety issues with the 2 existing dead-end streets, Valley Street and Lockwood Drive. Greenwood Drive is a local street which can easily handle the expected traffic from this subdivision. Existing traffic volume for Greenwood Drive, Mill Crescent to Willow Avenue, is approximately 3,917 vehicles per day, and that is taken from a traffic report dated May 27th, 2024. Existing volume for South Drive from Bayview Drive to Pope Road is approximately 8,715 vehicles per day. The traffic report dated July 24th, 2023. The estimated capacity for a city street is approximately 10,000 vehicles per day. The approximate estimated volume from the existing and proposed streets would be as follows. And there's traffic volume from the existing streets, Valley and Lockwood, which is an R1 zone with approximately 30 units, 2 vehicles per unit, 4 trips per day, which works out to a volume of 240 vehicles per day on Valley and Lockwood. Traffic volume for the proposed streets, Valley Street Extension and Lockwood Drive Extension. For the Zone 2, we're anticipating approximately 46 units with 2 vehicles per unit, 4 trips per day. So that's 368 vehicles per day. And for the narrow R3R lots, approximately 45 units, 2 vehicles per unit, 4 trips per day, 360 vehicles per day possible. The total proposed volume of 728 vehicles per day, and that total proposed volume, adding existing traffic at 50%, is 240 vehicles per day. So the total additional volume to Greenwood Drive is estimated to be 968 vehicles per day. Greenwood Drive existing volume, 3,917, plus the 968 additional, works out to be 4,885 vehicles per day on Greenwood Drive, meaning that 48.8% of Greenwood Drive's capacity at full development, equivalent to an increase of 9.68% traffic volume on Greenwood Drive. South Drive existing volume is 8,715 plus 50% of the new subdivision volume, which is 362 additional vehicles per day, bringing it to 9,317 vehicles per day on South Drive, meaning 90.8% of South Drive's capacity at full development, equivalent to an increase of 3.6% traffic volume on South Drive. Upon development of the lots, parking requirements will be determined. There is a sidewalk on the east side of South Drive and an active transportation lane on the east side of Greenwood Drive to accommodate pedestrian access. The city's water supply and sewer treatment systems can handle the loading created by the new subdivision. The city will require an easement for a future sewer main from Greenwood Drive to the rear lot line, rear lot line of lot 88 or 89. The development can access the city drainage system from the existing storm system on Greenwood Drive. H, suitability of parkland provisions. Staff comment, parkland dedication is required for a major residential subdivision based on buildable area. At council's discretion, the parkland dedication may be satisfied by conveying land or providing a monetary value. The buildable area of Phase 1 is 36,423 square meters, or 10.2 acres. 5.7 acres of medium density and 4.5 acres of high density residential land. The parkland requirement for medium density land shall be 7.5% of land. 5.7 acres times 7.5% works out to be 0.43 acres, or a monetary dedication of $2,625 per acre, bringing that up to $14,962.25. The parkland requirement for high density shall be 10% of land, which is 0.45 acres, or monetary dedication at $3,500 per acre, or $15,750. The city has sufficient green space, Centennial Park, within 500 meters of the proposed subdivision. The developer is proposing to satisfy the parkland by means of land dedication. The city will review the parkland consideration and advise the developer. Monetary parkland dedication shall be put in a fund reserved for solely for acquiring or expanding public parks within the city. 3 more. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, the preliminary subdivision approval application does not have an impact on city finances and budgets. J, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations. Staff comment, the developer shall conform with all provincial requirements as applicable. And K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, power can be made available for the proposed development so long as the developer can provide land space for power lines, which may require easements from third-party landowners and/or alterations to existing plans as submitted. Developer is to coordinate power needs with Summerside Electric prior to construction. Pending this coordination, cost share between developer and city will be determined as applicable for utility power. Staff review. Technical Services staff recommend the application from 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 69781 into 24 lots. The lots are intended to be, but not limited to, a semi-detached dwelling development. Be recommended to be approved by council, subject to the following conditions. And there are 4. Number 1, the developer shall satisfy all municipal servicing requirements. Number 2, the developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement. Number 3, the developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. And number 4, the developer must enter a development agreement with the city of Summerside to defer any subdivision responsibilities. As per section 8.5 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application, whether it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. Planning board recommendation. Preliminary subdivision approval be granted to 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide PID number 71191 for phase 1, creating 24 lots subject to conditions outlined in the staff review, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from the planning board, Councillor Trenholm. Are there any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Snow.
Thank you. Can somebody explain what it means when it says the developer is requesting a deferment of subdivision responsibilities for phase 2 and 3?
So there is a provision in our bylaw for a developer to defer subdivision responsibilities. So that can be parkland, streets, extensions of water, sewer, any of that type of thing. So in this case, I'm not clear with the developer is proposing to defer the parkland until the 2nd or 3rd phase, or if they're wanting to dedicate some parkland now. We do have to have further discussions with him around that, and whether the city is interested in taking land versus monetary value.
So if this was to go to council and got approved with that being in there, we'll have clarity before we actually go to vote, what they mean by that?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious
Exactly.
what that means down the road for, okay,
Yep, we'll provide some clarity there.
all right.
Sure, yeah.
I do have a comment.
We, Bruce, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, at the end of these comments, I'm going to make sure that Councillor McDougall, you and Councillor Cameron, I'm going to specifically ask if either one of you have anything to say, just because you're not here, and I know the connections can sometimes be a little rough, but yeah, Councillor McDougall, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great, thanks. I just, first of all, I want to say that I don't have a great deal of opposition to phase one. It's the overall subdivision plan I do have a problem with, and I go back to when the rezoning happened. They showed a looping off the two streets coming in off of Greenwood. There was a large turnout there from Valley Street and Lockwood Drive that was against the streets coming through. I don't think, and I know at that time they asked if they would be notified, and I believe that we said we would be notifying them, and I checked today with Linda, and I don't think anything has gone out to them, and I'm not sure how aware of the meeting that's going on tonight with everything else that's going on. However, I do have an issue with the overall plan with those two streets as proposed in phase 2 and phase 3. We were talking about going through Valley Street, and now we're proposing that we're going through Valley Street and Lockwood Drive. Those two streets are straight through, and I think that would just be get out of town speedway for the end of a hockey game. And you know, that's just one thing, or like I said before, it could be a shortcut to Walmart. But I do have an issue with the layout of the subdivision, and the residents were there to you know, talk about it the last time, and I hope that we have a better system in place when it comes to phase 2 and phase 3 of notifying residents of stuff that's going on around them.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Councillor Trenholm?
Sure, yeah. Just I guess I got a few points, but I guess just to begin with staff, just in reading where it says we're making the motion based on the staff review, where it says it's divided into 24 lots, which is yes, but if we're looking at it's like 2 lots are high density, and then 22 lots are intended for as. So it's on, I guess, page 7. I guess that's what it's on. So it's communicated elsewhere in the document. I just don't see it written in that way, where it says that this is what the motion is for. So yeah, it's right after, it's right at the end of the document.
Okay, yeah, this map
Yeah.
represents the phase 1 that they're seeking approval on, this area.
Oh, sure, sure, yes. I'm just talking about the wording, that's all. The wording of the where it says staff review. It just says it's dividing into 24 lots. The lots are intended to be not limited to semi-detached. Well, it's not the 24 lots that are intending to be that, it's 22, correct? Two are high density, and 22 are, I just want to make sure that when we put that motion, we're I guess saying that we all understand it, but that's just different. The other aspect, another point here is the Ice Pond Greenway. I was just curious on the wording, because when it's worded, it's on one hand, I guess we're saying this because this is the parks and green space plan as we've identified, but then it says that was developed first, and then secondly, the active transportation plan was put on Greenwood. So I guess, is there any idea, is the intent that maybe we're not going to do that parks and green space plan because of the active transportation pathway?
I think the plan is that we had some form of connection, so if the city thinks that's accommodated by using the active transportation lane, there still may be some appetite there to do some kind of a pathway up to that subdivision, if we could acquire that land or the right to go up through that area.
No, I was curious, yeah, because that's what I thought. Yeah, I know for myself, just speaking, I'd be in favor of keeping the keeping the parks and green space. I know we're still in the process of doing a review, but I think that's, and connecting to Confederation Trail, I think there's a benefit to that. And I guess I just jumped on the PEI corporate registry. I'm not exactly sure how this fits, but the business at this point status is inactive due to non-payment. So, and I wanted to follow up with the province just to figure out what exactly that means, right? So I don't know, maybe this is new information to everybody here, but it's old information, I guess, but it's new information to me. Yeah, so I guess the business is still active, but they just haven't filed a return since December of 2021. And so if they were to request a certificate of in good standing, they wouldn't obtain that from the province. So I do know, let's say, I know I've applied for before the community support program, and a part of that program, we couldn't get funding, or any organization can't get funding if you're not in good standing with the city. So I was curious if there's anything for the city's policies, is there anything that would say that we can't enter into an agreement or should not, or if a business is not in good standing with the PEI Business Registry?
I'm not aware of anything in our policies, but we can certainly look into it.
Yeah.
Council, just to jump in, look, that's a relatively normal term in any contract,
Sure.
that there would be a requirement that the company is in good standing.
Okay, that's what I
So
figured.
certainly good, from having practiced commercial law for a while, sometimes if a company isn't doing anything, sometimes they just don't file their forms until
That's
they
right.
start to do something. So I think it's certainly worth flagging, and good message to anyone looking to do business is to make sure that your registry or properly
Sure.
registered with the companies under the Companies Act.
Yeah, so for myself, I don't know where that leaves, I guess, the planning when we do come to make a recommendation. Where does that leave us if, in my mind, making a recommendation to move forward or not, but if we make a recommendation to move forward when we know that the business is not in good standing from the PEI Business Registry, what message does that send? And I don't, that's where my head is. That's where my head is. And when I do know the process to file a return. I talked with the province, and it takes 10 minutes to do that. And the fact that it hasn't been done since 2021, for me, it raises some alarms. So I guess I'll leave it at there, unless anybody else wants to do some more talk, I guess.
Okay, I guess Councillor Bruce had sort of mentioned already, I was wondering if there was another plan in place, because I didn't remember it being this direct, the roads. And he brought up that there was a more, I don't want to say cut-up version, but it wasn't a thoroughfare like we're looking at here, let alone two of them. So I guess I just sort of would have I'd be curious as to why that changed. And the residents wouldn't be aware on Valley or Lockwood, as Councillor Bruce mentioned as well. Are there currently sidewalks on Valley or Lockwood? So there's no sidewalks there, and we'd be adding to the traffic. And we don't appear to have an issue with the access to Greenwood, even though what comes out across the road, is that the last parking lot at Credit Union Place?
The slight little marks down at the bottom is
Yeah.
the Eco Park,
Oh,
the future Eco Park. It's just south of it's between the large high density and, I can't read the lot number, but it's the first semi-lot. There's small, what Linda's pointing to there. That would be the access to the Eco Park Innovation Way, it's called.
okay, well, I guess that's not very busy. So the impacts on the AT lane. That's what I was wondering. Ken, you brought that up. You had mentioned the AT lane, but in reference to the green space, but I was thinking more of the traffic, more traffic coming out. Especially if we're getting 2 lanes on the opposite side. I have a little bit of concern on that one. And of course, the financial impact, because right now with everything that's going on, our electrical services, so that's just another thing to add to that right now. So I guess those are some of them Councillor Bruce had mentioned. I do have concern that the people of Valley and Lockwood who were invested in being here last time might not know this is going on, and definitely probably are not well aware of 2 thoroughfares going through between Greenwood and South Drive. So that, I'm not sure how we go about correcting that. Anyway.
I just have a couple of questions also related to that issue, and then just a couple of statements. So first question for staff. So this is for phase 1. Would the Valley Drive stub connection in Lockwood come then for approval at phase 2 and or 3, or would any requirement to, or are we approving the proposed road straight through at this point in time? I would see it as we're just looking at phase 1, that phase 2 and 3 could change. Is that correct?
Yeah, currently we're just looking at phase 1.
Okay, so back to Councillor McDougall's point and Councillor Adams as well, we're not deciding whether or not a proposed road continues straight through. And I do raise it, Councillor Adams, and I often say, look, if there's a stub, you should expect that the road's going to continue. But I just wrote here, Bruce has kind of convinced me on this one. It's certainly one worth considering. R3R are narrow homes that ideally would be more affordable for families. This is a neighborhood, or a potential neighborhood, that would be walkable to Elm Street School, to the Dome, and listening to the concerns about trying to get out to get to South Drive, as opposed to taking the 2 connector roads that we already have with Pope and Water Street. I wouldn't want to be making a decision whether or not Valley would continue straight or whether it would loop onto the other proposed road. So just to confirm, that isn't what is being decided here. That would be decided when the developer returned with a phase 2 and or phase 3 application. That's correct? Okay. The second is the is marked 810 there on the Parks and Green Spaces plan. It's shown on the map in yellow. And I was just wondering if you know what the acreage is of that identified. It's not a parcel, but I'll call it a parcel. Okay. It would be helpful when this comes to council to know what the size is of that. If council takes land as opposed to sort of, I always think it's monetary in lieu of land for parkland dedication. To me, suggests the first is to take land, and that does connect right now to an existing trail network that is planned and set out in our official plan. What do we call it? The Ice Pond Area Extension. I think it would just be valuable to know what the size is, if that would satisfy the requirements for the parkland dedication in phase 1, or if that would require phase 2 and 3. I certainly would move that we add or amend condition number 3 here, that's before planning board, where the developer shall satisfy parkland dedication requirements, to include some language around to protect the existing conservation area to meet the needs of our existing Ice Pond Area Extension. I wouldn't want to see that lost. I think a bike path is different than a trail through a water course that connects to our boardwalk. Last one here, which I just sort of have for a question, but is whether or not there's no requirement for the developer to put sidewalks on the proposed unnamed road at this point.
No, there's no current requirement.
No curbing requirement, just no sidewalk requirement?
No current requirement
No
for
current
sidewalks.
requirement. Again, that goes to thinking about the broader picture here. So if consideration would be given to connect through to Valley, I do think certainly be sensible to be putting sidewalks there if those two roads looped. I think it's worth a consideration. And so again, I have a proposal for planning board to add a condition number 5, which would be a requirement of sidewalk on the street. I will also just say for the record, right now at least, I will turn my mind to it when we come to phase 2 and or 3, should those arrive at this council, and I'm still on this planning board. But right now, I'd certainly be leaning towards the looping option of the two, given the high volume of traffic that does not necessarily move on a regular, wouldn't move regularly, but would move for significant events in our community and people cutting in through, heading west. So again, looking at a great opportunity for a neighborhood with R3R, which is a great zone, which provides for narrower lots, more townhouse, row house, narrow housing, which really works for young families and older adults. Great opportunity, though, to make sure that that's really safe as it's connected to key assets in the city. So for planning board purposes, I'm just going to propose, and I don't know how you want to handle this, Councillor Duran, but again, I said I would propose to amend condition 3 to say the developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements to protect the conservation area and meet the needs of the ice pond area extension. That would be one, and then the second would be to add a condition 5, which would be the developer shall add sidewalks to any roadways. Recognizing, of course, when this comes to council, council can change around all the conditions they want and do whatever they want, but this is my opportunity to propose those before they move to council.
I would be pleased to either continue to move the motion seconded by Councillor Trenholm with those amendments, or if you would rather you move.
Could I have one more comment?
Yes, Councillor McDougall, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just on F, where it says compatibility of the proposed development with present and future surrounding patterns of streets. The last sentence there, it says a street connection to Valley Street and Lockwood Drive will be provided to accommodate phase 2 and 3 and phase 3. Is that something that the developer has put in there or was required to be put in there by the city?
So just to confirm, the intention to have a connection from Valley Street to Lockwood Drive as part of phase 2 and phase 3, was that something that the developer asked for, or is that something that the city requires?
This is the plan that was submitted by the developer, and the staff are in agreement with.
So it was a recommendation from staff?
I don't believe staff were speaking with the developer, they're just reviewing the submission that came in.
Yeah, because it's not what he proposed before. But anyway, that's okay. I just didn't like the word will, because phase 2 and phase 3 are not, we're not dealing with that right now. So does that have any effect on what we're voting on here tonight?
No. I mean, and maybe it would be better if it said connection to Valley Street and Lockwood Drive may be provided to accommodate phase 2 and phase 3. We haven't had an application come in for phase 2 or phase 3 yet, so
Right.
I think the concept sort of indicates that they would be there, but until we actually see the application, we don't know. So, does that make sense? Maybe it should be may be provided?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, it's just, it's in the developer's conceptual intention, I guess, but tonight is just phase 1.
Okay, no problem. I just raised the point, and as I said, I don't, phase 1 seems straightforward, so, okay, thank you.
Councillor McColeman?
I just want to double check. I'm not on planning board, but can we ask questions?
Oh, this is every.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just need to check.
Neither's Bruce.
What I'm wondering about is just the point that Councillor Carey made and the questions that Councillor Bruce is just bringing up, and it's for phase 2 and 3. But the point that I'm wondering about, if the decision for phase 1 goes through after our planning board meetings and vote, I'm just wondering, would there be any kind of a problem that could challenge council around due diligence if some of the residents aren't here tonight to hear the discussion on phase one? Especially if we're talking about those streets around Lockwood and Valley. Like, could somebody challenge that and say, well, we didn't know about it, or we didn't hear the discussion on it, and I just want to make sure of that.
I mean, as I would interpret it, and CEO, please, this is solely tonight for phase one. The fact that we're talking about phase two and phase three is just because, you know, a councillor brought it up in their comments, like, which is fine, but no, this is strictly
Okay.
phase one. When phase two and phase three come to us, that would be the time that we would want to inform residents or make residents aware.
Okay.
I don't know, Gordon, if you have anything to add to that. Like, we brought up phase two, phase three, but for all intents and purposes, this is a application that we're looking for phase one.
Okay, so I guess, just to close off my question then, I guess what really made me think about it was Mayor Dan had indicated that if there's a stub, and then when stub for a street or whatever to adjoin to another street, if then are we at the place where we're discussing phase two and phase three, would that be just an assumption that people would think then, okay, there is going to be a street leading into Lockwood or Valley? And that's why I'm wondering. And I know that's down
Yeah,
the road, but,
that's sort of
you know, it's just kind of like the power of assumption that people might think that we're already thinking about that when we're not.
Yeah. And it may not be everyone's assumption. It's really up to the landowner that's beyond that stub, whether they choose to develop or not, whether that stub actually becomes a street. It could be a stub for 100 years if no one decides to
Yep.
develop there. But I think the intention for stub streets is that they will eventually
Not
connect somewhere else in the road network, because there is a future road network.
Okay,
Map.
no, I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned, thanks.
Councillor Adams, Deputy Mayor Snow.
Okay, just, so, sort of following up on what Norma said, and Bruce had mentioned it. So, nobody got letters? So should people have gotten letters?
Typical notification is they already went through the rezoning. This is a preliminary subdivision which goes to planning board. The regular notification for planning board is posted on your regular process as far as they get put on all our social medias to say, here they are. Here's when the meeting package is sent out on Friday, and I think it gets posted on all the meeting notifications. That's the standard process we have for a preliminary subdivision approval. I guess in any other planning board items.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to clarify something that I think I heard Councillor Adams say, and I just don't know if I heard it right or not. So, Councillor Adams referenced under finances and then referenced our current electrical issues we're having. The two have absolutely nothing to do with one another, I want to say. And secondly, our current electrical issues have absolutely nothing to do with our own utility. Our own utility is quite robust and can handle quite a bit of development within the city. So I just want to clarify that, so it wasn't, there's been a lot of meetings over the last couple of weeks, and I want to make sure that publicly people realize, which I think we're getting the message of.
My reference was to, it would be a further drain on our system. That was what, like, we've done a very good job of getting out and explaining that this is, what's going on right now is not our issue. We are not getting what we rightfully should be getting from something that is a government-owned product. But what I'm saying about this is we are bringing on, we're looking at bringing on more to a system that we are going to have to spend money on, either getting more access, building ourselves a way to get to that access. Whatever way you put it, it is going to be
a financial situation on the city, and anything you build right now, like, if it's not a drain on the system, then we would have everything up and running right now. But the more things that go on, it's a drain on the system. So that's why the city right now is spending, I forget how many tens of thousands of dollars every day, you said, Mayor Dan, on it, because we want our residents to be able to have their lights on. So that's the point I'm trying to prove it, not prove or say, it is a drain on the current system that we have to work at getting control of ourselves.
So again, I will just state that our current system can handle growth and development, and I don't want the wrong message to get out there that anything that is happening now has anything to do with our inability to grow or provide electrical service for our community. It's actually quite robust. We use, and if I'm wrong in any numbers, but correct me, but we peak at 30 megawatts of power, and our current system can hold up a load of 60 megawatts. So there's still a lot of room for growth within our city and our system if we were able to get what we are obligated to get or supposed to be getting, we wouldn't be having this issue. So I think it's important for our growth and development within the city that we realize that we do have room to grow and our utility is in really good shape.
And I would just add that if we are still experiencing any electrical related issues by the time this develops, we're gonna have a lot bigger problems on our hands. But I think we're sort of getting off track a bit.
Yeah, we do have a presentation too coming up on
Yeah.
this, so we can follow up on the electric utility long-term and where we are at today.
I don't like this. I don't like not being able to have a discussion back and forth. I don't like being on planning board and not being able to ask the questions. Corey and I can agree to disagree. We do it all the time. We'll get along quite well after it. I will agree to disagree with you on this. I do agree that, yes, when we have what we're supposed to have, we are robust. But right now, we don't have what we're supposed to have, and we are not. And residents are doing everything they can to try and help out their city to keep the lights on, and we very much appreciate that. Anyways, I'll agree to disagree on the way we're both wording it, but yes, if it's, there are issues with the finances and the electrical.
Councillor Trenholm?
Thank you. Just a short point, since we proposed adding a condition. I don't know, if just adding a condition that I know we talked about the business not being in good standing, but for the business to be in good standing in this document, in that condition, I'd be much more comfortable if that was actually a condition that we would have before council as part of planning board, if that's possible.
Yep, I think that's possible.
Yeah, I'd second that, if that can be noted as one of the subject to another condition. Totally reasonable.
So the planning board recommendation with the amendments, is that what planning board will be voting on this evening? Or did the amendments come to council?
Yeah, look a little bit to staff. I guess first I would just sort of put out there on those two, now we'd have three, one amendment and two additional conditions. The parkland amended, and then the condition of adding sidewalk, and then the condition for the business to be applicant to be in good standing with the corporations. I'd put that out there first as just a discussion of planning board, and then maybe we'll sort of see what planning board feels about those, and then we could either add those, if planning board's all good with those, then we could put it in for a vote if we want to take one off, but I'd sort of look towards Councillor Adams and Trenholm and you, Councillor Duran, and we can decide if we want to send all of those through. Again, when it gets to council can take them all off or do whatever they want, but
I think they're reasonable and realistic to have in, personally, as chair. So, with Councillor Trenholm's agreement, it can remain I guess the recommendation moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Trenholm with the amendments for parkland and sidewalks and the good standing. All members of planning board in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Hearing none, the recommendation will be brought forward to council with the recommendation from planning board. And I think that's everything for the planning board meeting this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, members of Planning Board and Council. With that, we will move into our monthly, we'll adjourn our Planning Board meeting, and we will move into our monthly meeting here at the City of Summerside. Begin with a call the meeting to order here at 6:33 p.m. on February 18th, 2025. Before I call for a motion to approve the agenda, there are a few amendments that most of them are just simple housekeeping, but I'm going to go through them as a package, and then council can decide if you want to have them or not. The first would be, first amendment would be to strike item 4A and strike item 4B from the meeting agenda tonight. As this meeting was a reschedule from yesterday due to a storm, the junior mayor and council weren't able to make it at the storm date, and our IT department as well had previous obligations. So I'm just going to propose that we remove both item 4A and 4B. The second would be under 1, it should read 1A, 1B, and 1C, not 1E and 1F. And subsequent to that, 1C, if amended, should read conflict of interest, not land acknowledgement. We did our land acknowledgement already. The next would be on item 6B, and I was just informed before the meeting that has been, an application has been withdrawn by the applicant. So I would propose that we just remove 6B as the applicant is withdrawn for the time being.
Your Mayor, Your Honor,
Yep.
or Your Worship, sorry, can you just say what it is? Because we have people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 6B is 0 Dara Avenue official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. First reading, refer zoning bylaw to planning board, and a first reading, refer zoning bylaw to planning board. And I think, off the top of my head, 0 Dara was an application, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong here, with respect to a dormitory, is that, no, never mind, that one's not.
0.
Okay, so it's a rezoning for, okay.
Yeah.
6B, don't listen to what it was, it's 0 Dara Avenue, being removed. And then the last amendment for our monthly meeting agenda would be to add as item 8 and then move adjournment to item 9. And item 8 would be an in-camera discussion for council on CAO hiring. So now I would call for, unless there's any questions, call for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Move Councillor Snow, second. Councillor Duran, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the amended agenda. At this point, I'll call on any member of council to declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the agenda before you this evening. Hearing none, we move on to number 2 minutes. I will just quickly jump in and let members of the gallery know more people have shown up here. Councillors McDougall and Councillor Cameron are both unable to join us in person here tonight, but both of them are joining through YouTube, I guess is how we live stream, and are able to speak and share comments. I will call for approval for the following minutes. We'll begin with approval of the planning board minutes of January 20th, 2025. Moved Councillor Duran, second Councillor Trenholm, all members of planning board, I guess all members of council. Please indicate by saying aye if we're willing to adopt the minutes as presented. Any opposed, changes, amendments? Hearing none, those minutes are adopted. Next, we'll call for a motion to approve the monthly meeting minutes of January 20, 2025, the committee of the whole meeting of February 4th, 2025, and the special council meeting of February 4th, 2025. Can I get a motion from a member of council? Moved by Councillor McColman, second. Councillor Morrison, all in favor of the minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, changes, and amendments? Hearing none, the minutes are carried. With this, we move to item 3, an opportunity for any member of council to present any accolades, recognitions within the community over the past month. Okay, here, oh, Councillor Adams, okay, Councillor Adams. I saw you reaching for the mic.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of timely because we're going into utility update, but I think we should be all very thankful for our Summerside Electric employees, from, those that are out on the lines to those that are in the office. The hours and the explaining that they have tried to do to get it through all of our heads, what was going on. It's not as simple as just flipping a switch. And I'm sure Greg's tried to explain things to me many times, and I'm still like, a million miles away from understanding it. It's so complex, and we're extremely lucky to have the group we do. They're on call 24/7, and yeah, we definitely wouldn't be where we are these weeks without them. So, thank you guys.
Thank you, Councillor. I do have one as well. I'd just like to recognize the Team Canada women's team, who last weekend gave a good thumping to the United States here in Summerside to win the rivalry series with a full packed house at the Credit Union Place. It was more than just a hockey game, but also to all members of the community and the public who were respectful of the American national anthem and respectful of all players of the game, and cheered well for Team Canada, and really inspiring for a lot of young women in our community to see their heroes in person, in action, and what an incredible game. Couldn't have scripted it any better. And with that, we move into item 4, which are public presentations, petitions, and delegations. As I said, we have A and B have been removed, so we will start with Summerside electric utility update. This was an update we requested to put in with Director Goody. Director?
So it's been a hot topic in the community last week and a half or so, ever since last February 10th, when the lights went out for a few hours. So we'll try to give you the status quo of a little bit of history, what we've been doing and struggling to date since then, and then what we continue to do. So some of the operational status is that we continue to plan daily in our organization. So that consists of planning, engineering, and operators, to use all the resources in the community that we have to bear on the issue to meet our local residents' electricity demand. And that is from our 1950s engine, which you see in the picture there at our power plant. We call it engine number 7, and it was used in diesel submarines in World War II as a background in some history books for the same make and model engine. So, but we also are using our modern technology to do that as well. So we also have a solar farm. So when it's sunny out, it helps. When it's windy, our wind farm helps. We also have a battery, which stores that electricity. So what we try to do with that is charge it when we have excess energy on our system locally, and then discharge it when we don't. So we can shift the energy from when we need it, we have it locally. We're also coordinating with Maritime Electric. As operation to operation, we're doing everything we can to keep from the worst case scenario, which is having us residents to shutter in place and have no power for a couple hours and then rotate it around the city. And that's been because we've been cut off from our access from our normally secure energy from New Brunswick. So from the heavy use of these local resources and the age of our diesel generation, Summerside also has suffered its own few failures through the last week and a half. So our aged assets are normally good for 15 megawatts of electricity. With failures over time from the age and the use of them, from high temperatures, we've had to reduce that diesel generation capacity down to 9. So we've had our own few failures. We are repairing them as soon as we can, air shipping in United Kingdom parts from Britain, basically, and paying airfare to get them in, but still 3 to 4 weeks away to finish those repairs. Operational staff are also been working around the clock, so we're talking hour by hour, coordinating with Maritime Electric to make sure we can figure out where to get the electricity from and how to plan our assets accordingly to meet the residents' and customers' demands of the city. So business really continues without interruption. Human resources. So what you see there is a current picture. Mayor Kuchar and Councillor Morrison had come down to the plant to see what was going on a bit from our failure. You see the Dan in the picture there. Councillor Morrison has the foot there in the bottom corner. He's there. And those guys are the guys that are not only operating the equipment, but they also are maintaining it. So with the heavy use, staff are getting a little long in the tooth, I'll say. We're getting tired, but we're ensuring electricity flows. And the frustrating part of the whole situation is we continually ask Maritime Electric for timelines for restoring their failed infrastructure, and they're not coming forth with concise information other than we're working on it, basically. So it's frustrating times. The other side is financial status. So it was brought up earlier in discussions with council about the cost. The costs are usually short in duration for this type of events than when we need our assets that are expensive to provide electricity, but we do it when it's necessary for backup. We try to avoid it for cost, but we're ready for the cost. So it'll come up, I'm sure, in other discussions with Budget Council, but we do have a healthy bottom line in electric utility for these little bumps. And it's estimated about 100 grand a day is what's changed on our books for financial status. And in there you just see one of the local fuel delivery on petroleum. That's probably worth about 45,000 liters of fuel. It's about $75,000 worth of fuel, that one truck. So that's what we're doing to keep everybody warm, safe, and in business. The last thing is what are Maritime Electric's plans. So they've got 3 options that we know of that they've communicated on how to fix their damaged repair. They have a transformer from Newfoundland coming in to replace the failed unit. I'm told currently as we speak it's on site at Sherbrooke and they're starting to look at connecting it. There's a similar aged unit in West Royalty that's been there since the failure but has been troublesome to get to site. They also tried to repair for the first week the transformer that failed. Unsuccessfully, I guess. So the real crux of those 3 items they're working on, they still haven't given us an end date when the current conditions will be relieved from what I'll say normal conditions for the city. But the situation continues is the bottom line. So with the cold weather continuing, we're still in -10 weather. It gets warm and colder now a little bit, so we're hoping to see a break in the weather. And this really lightens the demand of electricity on the system when that happens, with all the electric heat in the community. However, Somerset Electric are still collaborating with Maritime Electric to use all the resources we can do to prevent from the worst case situation occurring. Now, when I say that, Maritime Electric has 1970 vintage engines in Borden generation units that are tied to the same system we are on, so they can backstop our units should we fail. But right now, we primarily do most of the running, and then we'll figure out, because we like to control our own destiny and costs. We don't know what the costs are for Maritime Electric yet to do that. I think the strength of the community is being shown in this time of need. There's been a lot of conservation efforts happening around Summerside. Summerside itself has shuttered some doors with Credit Union Place closing down for a few days. And not only that, it's the strength of local resources. So by the city investing in solar farms, battery, wind farms, it's really assisted in avoiding 2 things. One is having to turn lights off, and second is the cost of that. So by using those local renewable sources, it's really assisted and shown the strength of the utility system. On that point, our system can deliver, once it hits our doorstep, we can turn around and turn those electricity units back to the customers at a 60 megawatt capacity. Our peak is 35. We don't have an issue in Summerside for growth or providing electricity. It's the piece of the puzzle for us is getting it to our doorstep. Currently, there is discussions going on of how do we get that firmed in a better way that may be around business policies of who we do business with. That's in the works for the community and will be a topic in the future that'll come out probably in more news later as things progress. But I can't stress enough the strength of the community from, we had businesses actually shut down last week, which we don't like to see. They closed their doors, they ran their own generators, and it feels like we failed. Sorry I'm getting emotional, but it feels that way because we don't fail. So that's the update. Apologies.
Thank you, Greg. And to reiterate Councillor Adams' comments earlier in the evening, we certainly would not have made it through the last 8, 9, 10 days going on now without your leadership, your firm and fair leadership, and the whole team there. There's no question to a T when Rick and I, Councillor Morrison and I went through and talked to the whole crew a few days ago. Every single one of them said they lined up behind you, they did what they needed to do to get done. The guys were working 12-hour shifts, then getting something to eat, then going home, and then turning around and coming right back. And the reality is it's not just them, it's also their husbands, their wives, their kids that are at home that aren't seeing them because they're working so much, but keeping the lights on here in the city of Summerside. So really thank you and the whole team for all the
Appreciate
work. Pictures for our diesel generators, those are our, we used, how many hours?
Be used as backup fatigue.
And then just to connect, is the cost here, generators last week, each
Currently, solar, wind assets, and battery storage.
backup, normally we run.
Thank you for the information. What we pay for that, a little bit of a snapshot of what that.
For the periods of time. Just a minute longer, so we didn't want to commit long-term for that. We continue to request the service for about 2 years plus in the past. Well, we were told that in fact going to Maritime Electric. We have never considered ourselves such.
And just one last point on that. I think, you know, as mayor and council, so I find that a bit troubling that we're referenced as being interruptible when we know how much we're paying for that link, that
Yeah,
coverage.
There's very quickly, there's 2 parts before it gets to our doorstep. One is the New Brunswick connection, which is owned by the province PEI, who we've been asked to pay for as electric ratepayers for our share, which we do. The other piece is going through Maritime Electric's territory to provide transmission service, and that's currently the bottleneck from the failure. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so first of all, you didn't fail. Maritime Electric failed and continues to fail every day that I'm, in my opinion, every day that we don't have a connection to the publicly owned infrastructure that I think we have a right to connect to. 2, and I just have 3 questions. I think there's a misconception out there that we produce wind energy, but we don't use it, and that we export it. And you sort of mentioned that, of course, we're using it with our solar, but I'm wondering if you can just briefly speak to that misconception that we generate all this wind energy, but we don't consume it ourselves.
Sure. There's a couple pieces to that. We have a contract with West Cape Energy, which is located in West Cape, West Point, and we get electricity from them, which comes to our doorstep. Currently, with the current configuration, we don't necessarily always get access to that energy the way it's configured right now. And secondly is we use both assets for wind power for our assets, and they contain about 60,000 megawatt hours of our 160,000 use per year. So we're at about 40-some% of that wind energy, and we do use it. There are times, and currently there are times right now, where Summerside Electric will resell that energy to New Brunswick Power if we can't get it to our doorstep, or if the wind and the solar is providing too much energy, we can't use it locally or put it in our battery. It's not very business-wise to waste the energy into nothing, so we try to make contracts. So there's a balance between, there's partial truths to selling energy, but it's only when there's surplus.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then just two more things. The $100,000 a day, are we paying that, or are we gonna invoice somebody for that?
To be determined in my mind right at the moment. It all boils down to probably the positioning and the rules of the game of how we operate. Depending on who's responsible for the result probably dictates who bears the cost. And also then there's also the rules. One of the issues, by being considered or labeled as an interruptible customer, that normally would be the responsibility of the interruptible customer. So I'm not yet determined as to the outcome of that comment, but I'm sure companies will assume that it's our responsibility.
And I'm sure the mayor will speak to it, but we've been requesting to be a non-interruptible customer now for 2 years, waiting for an answer back. I'll let
Yeah.
others speak to that, but I guess that other part just sort of moves into my last question. Will we be exploring the possibility of provincial government intervention?
I think that's one of the topics we are discussing and pursuing as to what are the options for Summerside. It's a serious enough issue for the community that it needs to be solved forever.
Yeah.
So for us, that means if we can't rely on our partners to do business with, then you can't do business with that partner. Unfortunately, I'm reminded of an analogy of late. When you're a monopoly of a service and you don't want to provide that service, how can you consider yourself a monopoly?
Okay, I'll just leave it at that. And, well, I'll leave it at the fact that I think it's ridiculous that we and our tax-paying residents should be on the hook for that $100,000 a day when it's not our fault at all. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Director, for the update and for the continued work. And also your and the whole team, this council, previous council, mayors, staff, who put the city of Summerside in a position to be able to even have the generation assets that we do have, which have kept the lights on here in our city. We've turned into one of the most progressive small-scale utilities in this country, so we should be really proud of the work we've done, and thank you for the whole team. With that, we will move into item 4C, which is Silver Fox due diligence report. We have Deputy CAO DeRosier presenting here for us. Quick background on this for folks who haven't been following along. The Silver Fox came to the city of Summerside looking for support and potential to consider ownership of the facilities. City Council directed staff to conduct necessary due diligence. That due diligence, as I understand, has been for the most part completed, and Deputy CAO will present to Council today. There's no decisions being put to Council tonight. Would be unfair to drop all this on Council and expect a decision be made right away. But I think what will come up in the presentation, there is some timeliness to this, so expectation that it will be returning to Council at some point in the near future. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Deputy.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we're here tonight to provide Council with an update on some of our findings as a result of the due diligence review for the Silver Fox. Tonight, we're going to review a couple of things, and I'm going to bring up some subject matter experts to help me through this process a bit. The first item would be the comprehensive legal review, along with the financial review, the results of the building condition assessment. We're also going to provide Council with what we would see as a proposed new operating structure. and some information on that structure and what we see as a proposed 3-year outlook on the finances from an operating perspective, and then a discussion about the debt load currently, and then what the city's obligations would be should they decide to move forward. We plan to bring this back to council for the March 6th, 6th meeting? The next meeting, I think it's the 4th, for a decision at that time, because as you mentioned, the timeliness is a bit of a concern right now. So any questions with this process before I get started? We're all good? So I'm going to ask Mr. Key and Mrs. Gunn to come up, and we'll do a quick review of the legal and HR components of the due diligence.
Good evening, Your Worship, Council. I was asked to have a look at the ownership of the current assets and whether or not they have good and marketable title, both as regards the realty, the chattels, and as you'll see, the leases, which have significant importance. So can you show me the real estate piece? So on that map, oh, there we go. On that map, you'll see parcel 801100. That's the Fox. The red lines are the legal boundaries of the property. Of those legal boundaries of the property, there is no issue with respect to title in any way. You do want to be aware, however, that the westerly boundary is between 801100 and what's shown as the blue part, the basin 322198, is what's referred to as the seawall. When the Silver Fox received the seawall, when the Silver Fox received the property by way of deed in 2008, specifically excluded from the deed was the seawall. So the Fox takes the position they do not own the seawall. You got the next one? Keep going. There are a series of leases that are relevant to the property. One of which is the basin, which is where you see the two principal docks. That property is owned by SRDC and is leased to the Fox on an annual basis at $1 a year. So while they have access to it, they don't own it, and it's terminable effectively at any time that the province or SRDC were to decide. In the same way, the area that's boxed out, which is what's commonly referred to as the breakwater and Dock C, that property is owned by the Port Corporation. Again, there was a lease entered into a year ago. It expires in July of this year at $600 and change to give access to that space. Again, it's a renewable if the parties agree to renew it, otherwise it's terminable. You want to go to the next one? Don't keep going. That's it. So while that's busy, the point of it is to show that the yellow portion, which is the area where there is title, has no access. The access is provided by way of a right-of-way that extends from the intersection with, what's it called, Harborview Drive and Water Street into the property. That right-of-way is also referenced in a series of what are called parking and maintenance agreements that involve all of the property owners within that complex. So from Spinnakers to Eptech to Harborside to the Access PEI building, Holland College, all of them are all part of that maintenance and parking agreement. Again, the challenge with that is that it has expired, and at least according to the registry office, has not been renewed. So it's a matter that at some time in the future we want to look after it. Is it material? I would suggest not, given the nature of who we're dealing with. The Phase 1 environmental was requested from Juiced Environmental. They have done a full review of the property from an environmental perspective. We do not have their written report. They're waiting for the results of core samples down by the gas dock. But otherwise, they indicate there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. In fact, they're very, very impressed with the condition of the property. We also looked at potential liabilities that would be attracted as a result of change of ownership. There are a series of agreements with various levels of government where funding has been provided. You will recall, because the city's a part of many agreements of a similar nature, where there are what's referred to as control periods. In other words, if there's a change of ownership within 60 months after completion of a project, then the repayment terms are triggered. That exists in one of the agreements, a federal infrastructure agreement. The good news is that if the change of ownership is either to the federal government, the provincial government, or an approved municipal government, then the control period is not triggered. So by way of preparation, if there's to be a transfer of assets, it would be incumbent upon the city to seek approval to have that transfer made, so that the control period is not triggered and the loan is not called. I think that's it for me. Any questions on any of that? Good.
So I have looked at the HR information that's been provided so far by the Silver Fox. We've been advised that they have approximately 42 employees, the majority of whom work casually, and many of those work full-time elsewhere. Although no employees have been promised a fixed number of hours per week or per month, 7 regularly work between 35 and 40 hours per week. Most of those 7 have been with the Silver Fox for between 2 to 3 years, and 2 of them have been with the Silver Fox for between 6 to 8 years. The PEI Employment Standards Act requires employers provide a minimum of 2 weeks' notice of termination for employees who have been continuously employed for between 6 months and up to 5 years. 4 weeks' notice are required for employees continuously employed between 5 and 10 years. Notice periods can be worked or paid out. So if not worked, an estimate of potential payout for the employees who frequently work full-time hours has been included in the monetary piece of the presentation. Any questions? Okay.
So we're going to jump right into the financial review. We have Director Kristen and Mr. Totten here to discuss our findings, so I'll move over again.
Thanks very much. First of all, thanks very much to Silver Fox staff and board members for providing the information that we required to perform our due diligence. So just going through a quick list of items that we looked at was the corporate income tax returns have been filed on time. HST returns, we're aware of a return that CRA is assessing currently. They're expected to complete it actually today for a significant refund. Payroll deductions have been filed and remitted monthly. Property taxes is been paid up to date. Workers' compensation is in good standing. And we were not provided with an operating budget for this current fiscal year, but based on the income statement that we received to the end of January, they are in an operating loss of about $105,000, and the fiscal year ends on April 30th. So based on a review, we wanted to look to see what the obligations were of the Silver Fox currently. We see that there's trade payables in the amount of $253,000, and this is the balance after the receipt of the HST refund. There's a loan, a working capital loan at the Consolidated Credit Union, which we expect in April will have a principal balance of $142,000. We're estimating about $100,000 required for the balance of the fiscal year for operations. And then we've set aside about $30,000 for potential employee liabilities. So we're suggesting that obligations would total about $525,000 approximately. Does anybody have any questions? And I have Matt Totten here with Doan Grant Thornton, if you have any questions.
Just from my perspective, just to introduce myself a little bit. So we're public record. We're both the accountants of the Silver Fox for many, many years, going back to early 90s, and before that, many remember Warren Carricker, so it's a long time client firm. Similarly, we are public record city auditor as well, so it's, our role was to discuss with management just some information gathering. I had also discussed with the chair of the board, Silver Fox, Brandy Ramsey, just what my role would be, just to help facilitate the due diligence as required. So yeah, here to answer any questions there might be.
Thanks, Matt.
I just wonder, how do you want it to go for like overall questions? Like, do you want like regarding the property, and do you want to just wait till the end and ask all the questions after?
I think it's good to ask them now with experts here, and then at the end, there's time for questions as well, so it's kind of free.
So don't let Derek leave then, because I have some. Okay. So I'm just wondering, the refund that you mentioned, so what would that be applied to?
That's going to be applied towards vendor payables.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So actually what's outstanding currently is about $401,000, I believe. And then once the HST refund is received, it'll be.
Okay.
I have one question there. Maybe we can answer it at the end, but I just, is there going to be more information on the use of operations to April 30th that will not be offset by revenue allowed funds? So you're suggesting that between now and April 30th, the continued losses would approximate $100,000?
Yeah.
Can you speak to roughly, and I mean, we don't have the specifics here in front of you, but roughly where you get that number from? Where that loss comes from?
Did look at April of last year, 2024, and that month was 44,000. So we're just making assumptions based on for February, March, and April.
Okay, so you're looking at past year.
That's right.
Previous year, okay. Okay.
Okay.
So now we'll roll in to a brief discussion on the results of the building condition assessment that we conducted. Community services staff engaged a number of private sector professionals to review the building. We went through everything from building envelope and structure to electrical reviews, HVAC, the docking system, the plumbing systems, the windows and doors, security, ice plant, and sewer line conditions. And as Mr. Key alluded to, the findings were quite positive in all areas. The building is in very good shape. There's very little need for emergent capital items right now. So the results of the building condition can be provided to council following this meeting. They're fairly lengthy, but all the arrows point to a fairly decently maintained structure. Any questions on that before I move on? Nope. So what we're going to do now is just review what staff feel would be a proposed operating structure should the city decide to assume operations. This is just to kind of shed light on what we see as what the facility would look like under a municipal structure. Certainly not set in stone, but we want to provide council with something that gives some context to the future. So I'll just run through each sort of element of the facility and sort of where we think we would move, and you can stop me along the way with any questions. So we'll start with curling operations. We had the opportunity to consult with the curling president and discuss kind of the future and the current challenges of the curling operations in Summerside right now. I think it was, I don't want to speak for the club specifically, but I think it was mutually agreed that becoming a tenant of the facility with more hands-off operational oversight and more focus as a board on long-term curling advocacy and membership growth was a goal of theirs, and one from a recreation perspective I think we align with. So the future would look like a leasable tenant situation with a lease rate that in the early years, or the early year at least, would be favorable to get the club back on their feet, get them realizing some revenue streams that are necessary to help them kind of move forward into the future sustainably. This would mean that the city would retain sort of all operational responsibilities and oversight, which would include planned operations, custodial services, maintenance, repairs, et cetera. And that would allow the board to focus, like I said, more on sustainability and advocacy. Any questions on the curling portion there? Nope. Marine operations. So from our perspective, we see an opportunity to move forward with the current yacht club and to become more of a public marina. We would manage dock registrations and payment through our existing credit union place customer service lines. Dock installation and maintenance and oversight will be managed by our facilities foreman at the facility itself, along with seasonal employees to help. Now, this has obviously been something that's been done by volunteers with support from staff down there for years. So we, in the early years, we recognized we would need obviously some guidance from the great volunteers down there, but eventually that would become a full-on municipal responsibility. We also see opportunities in growing junior sailing and adult sailing and water safety programming through our Community Services Aquatics Department, who have a great desire to see growth of the use of our waterfront. And we don't necessarily see any required need for a board of directors for the marina itself, more so seeing the marina become its own entity through a municipal structure. Obviously, there's an opportunity for the marina group to have social events committees and things to program along the marina itself. Questions about the marina? In terms of food and beverage, so initially in the short term, the city will likely require to have what we would see as a reduced food and bar service to remain within our contractual obligations with ALC. We would propose to move to an RFP process in May or June of this year to seek out a third-party provider for food service for the facility. We would allow time through the summer months to close on that RFP, go through the due diligence process with this particular third party, and move forward with renovations and fit up with the selected party throughout the winter of 2025 with the proposed 2026 opening. The food and beverage service would operate independently from the city. Contractual terms would be mutually agreed upon between us and between the city and the third party provider. And most likely follow existing principles that we use for our existing food service provider at Credit Union Place. And we would move forward with some initial separations of curling facilities in terms of access and entrances, in terms of capital needs early on. But the fit up for a restaurant would obviously be the responsibility for a new food service provider. In terms of administration, so we would propose that, again, should the city assume that responsibility of this asset, that the Director of Community Services and the Community Services Department would be ultimately responsible for the facility and its operations. Much of the customer service elements such as bookings and scheduling, HR, and financial services would all be provided through existing city departments. And then we would obviously move forward in having an operations and maintenance foreman and along with seasonal employees there to conduct the maintenance of the facility. So initially, we've done a 3-year projection under city management of the facility. We see a leveling off in years 3 and beyond of the operations. The first couple of years will require some investment on behalf of the municipality to subsidize its operations. We're projecting in year 1 a deficit of about $130,000. Year 2, leveling a bit to about $50,000, and by year 3, hopefully leveling off to a bit of a balance or perhaps a surplus. A lot of the early year projections the early 1-year projections of losses are a result of not wanting to hit users and ratepayers of that facility with major increases early on. And also that we would be net of a food service provider for the first year of operations. Once we see the food service come online and hopefully the success of the curling and marina side, start to see a leveling off in year 3.
I just have a question there, JP. So those operating projections, do those include the debt servicing costs associated with assuming the obligation of 5 1/4?
They do not.
Okay.
So that brings us to the end of the presentation. So certainly here to answer any questions you may have or take back questions that we may not have answers to tonight and bring back on the 4th.
Your worship?
Yeah, sorry about that. Oh, geez, who was first? All right, Councilor.
That's-
There you go.
Councilor
Bruce?
still
Okay,
there.
Bruce. He was getting my attention.
just-
Sorry. Councilor McDougall.
Thank you. I know this was at the first, and I didn't want to interrupt anybody, but the comment on the Silver Fox does not own, it's their opinion they don't own the seawall. How do we figure out who owns that seawall? I don't want to find out later that we own it.
The ownership of the seawall is within the hands of the province of PEI through its ownership of SRDC.
Good evening, Councilor McDougall.
Good evening.
I think what JP says is absolutely correct. Where the challenge obviously becomes is if the province decides that they don't want to repair or replace or whatever when the time comes, then it'll become a matter of what's a practical solution to what's a quagmire of a legal problem. Not having legal title certainly absolves you of responsibility, but when the front of your building is falling into the basin, you're probably going to at least pay attention.
Right, that was my concern. The other concern I had, Derek, was the right-of-way. Do we have a right-of-way? I just missed a part of that. The right-of-way comes in from Heather Moyse Drive to the Silver Fox?
Yeah,
property?
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
When SRDC owned all of the property, it was relatively simple. When, as that evolved and everyone was doing their best to be collaborative and cooperative and come up with a solution, there was a series of maintenance, parking and access agreements entered into. They're critical to the Fox in particular, but they're also very important to all the other property owners because no single property owner with the exception of Holland College, obviously has within their legal title, or the footprint of their legal title, sufficient parking. So the parking is a shared parking arrangement. Silver Fox uses space that is on legal title of Holland College, probably uses some that's on legal title of the province. In turn, the Harbourfront Theatre uses others' parking, and so on. So those access and parking agreements are critical, but I think just with the passage of time, folks have perhaps not paid attention to them, and maybe over the next little while, those probably should be looked at and refreshed.
Okay, just one more. It was to do with the repayment of the infrastructure. If the city can get that out of the way, that's fine, but if they can't, what is the amount of that infrastructure repayment?
Yeah, JP's guessing a number and I'm guessing a number, but it's $200,000 or $300,000. I wouldn't lose any sleep over that one, Councillor McDougall. I think the reality is that the province or the federal government, I can't imagine, would have, and they're the ones who ultimately have to sign off through their committee. I can't imagine under any circumstances that they would not be comfortable to see the municipality take over this significant asset, particularly as it has been well maintained and from a building structure and legal title perspective is a pretty attractive property.
Thank you. And thanks, JP, for the presentation. As finance chair, I can say that there's definitely a lot to digest here, so I'll just step back and listen. Thanks.
Go Ken and then Carrie.
Sure, that's great. Well, that took care of two of my questions. Thanks, Bruce. I guess when we're looking at fees, you kind of mentioned I think an increase of fees in the year 2 or 3, maybe year 3. What are we thinking that would look like, I guess, in terms of the increase?
We didn't granularly look at membership fees on curling and yachting side to that degree in terms of a percentage increase. We looked at an operating structure that we felt was reasonable. So in discussions with the curling president, and again, I don't want to speak for him or his board, we talked about keeping the initial year lease rate similar to what fees are being paid or generated currently, with a increase moving forward, along with providing the club with additional revenue streams that may not exist right now or may not be acted upon to sort of make up for those fee increases. It would be a sort of a static lease rate that would be attached. In terms of the marina side, our anticipation would be to follow existing years' fees, and then not unlike any other recreation fee that we charge in our city, it'd be discussed at budget in terms of what's needed for annual increases based on CPI and other factors, capital items or what have you.
Okay, no, thanks. And I guess I see operating budget, but I'm just looking at I don't think there was a discussion on the debt, the current debt, unless I totally just okay, all right. Okay, no, thank you.
Councillor Adams and then Councilman Coleman and then Councillor.
Just really quickly, you had mentioned, and then Bruce followed up on the parking agreement or the right-of-way. So you said that should be looked at sooner rather than later, if this all was to go forward. So who in the past has been the head of that? Has it been like Holland College, or has it been like, whose job is it to start this?
That's a great question. I think the way we got here was SRDC. because they were the property owner at the time. And so with SRDC still a legal entity and owned now 100% by the province, they would seem like the perfect choice to take hold of this and get it fixed up.
Perfect. Thank you, Worship. I think Councillor Bruce had asked the questions, and so I won't go there. I think he asked pretty well what I wanted to. But on the second one, what I'm wondering about is the repayment of the money on the government funding agreements within 60 months. I think, Derek, you had mentioned that if there's any changes, that it would trigger some type of expectation of that money being paid. So what I'm wondering about is, in the agreement's name on the application as debtors, would that be under the Silver Fox Curling and Yacht Club, or would it be under the official executive board of directors name? And would that be something that the city would have to assume?
So, that was the right one? Yeah. So the agreement is with the Silver Fox Curling and Yacht Club, Inc. If the city were to take over the physical asset before the date it does that, we would want to get a letter from the, what's it called, the Infrastructure Committee or the Federal Provincial, what's it called?
Infrastructure Secretariat, I think.
Infrastructure Secretariat. We'd want to get a letter from them confirming that they consent to the change of ownership.
Part B of that question would be, I'm wondering, like with the Infrastructure Secretariat, they would be very aware that there's other property owners that have that right of access, that, you know, the parking lot and the different buildings and SRDC with the seawall. So would that enter into it with the city? Like, would there have to be some kind of an arrangement made so that there is an understanding about that?
That's a great question. In a lot of instances, those funds are secured by property or by some physical asset. In this instance, they are not. It's merely an agreement or a promise to pay. So again, if the city chooses to move forward with this, I think the box you want to tick off is to make sure that we have a letter from the Infrastructure Secretariat confirming that they consent to this transfer.
Thank you.
This whole thing, just from hearing the presentation, seems to have the support or the endorsement from staff. And there also appears to be some nodding from people in the audience here. So I guess I'm just wanting to confirm that it's safe to assume that staff generally, through this process, see this as a good move to make. It's nice to hear it from staff.
I was hopeful this question wasn't going to get asked, but to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to give you just a fair answer, but I think our job today was to provide council with a due diligence report, not a recommendation. Staff certainly do see opportunity and the potential of the complex, there's no question. That has to be balanced with the current state of the city's financials and its current responsibilities in the community. And that's something that will need to be pondered over the next 2 weeks by council and come back with a response.
I'll take a page out of Basil's book and say that I hear what you're not saying. And I guess just because I think it will probably be asked, and I'm glad that we did this, I'm in full support. I'm just wondering what, if you go ahead, I think a couple slides, that one. Lots of third-party involvement here. I'm just wondering what, if we know the cost of this process has been, and I mean, I'm all for it. I'm glad we did it. I know it might come up
I can
If we
certainly
know.
get that for you in advance of the next meeting. I
Okay.
don't have it summarized yet. There's certainly been some cost and a lot of staff time and
Yeah.
effort, but I don't have the number for you this
Understandably,
evening yet.
so, yeah, no, and then just to reiterate, I'm behind it 100%. I'm glad we did it, and it needed to be done, and who knows what would have possibly come up if we didn't, and so, no, thank you.
Councillor Cameron or Councillor McDougall, I know, Bruce, you've spoken already, just if there's any questions still there.
I'm okay. I think everyone covered most things.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morrison?
Just to go back to the breakwater and the marina and the right-of-way, I should be careful assuming anything, but before any decisions would be made in this, I'm figuring that there'd be discussions on long-term leases for the $1 a year or whatever. And the $1 a year would be much better than the $600 for the breakwater with the Port Corporation. I don't know what our relationship is with them, how good it is, but anyway, I assume that all those things would have to be considered and taken into, because you'd have to have that. There'd be no sense, well, no sense, but I'd be a little leery of getting too far involved in that building if you had no access to the water or the marina or the, and again, I'll assume the seawall issue is kind of a thing that maybe, and I shouldn't be even saying that probably, but the yacht club may at the time maybe didn't want to have to deal with the expenditures of repairs and fixing that because it'd be pretty hefty bill, so maybe that's how the province ended up with it, or it became their responsibility, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so it's just a thought on those long-term leases that, you'd certainly have to have a right-of-way to the property, and you'd certainly want to be able to use the marina and have some rights with the breakwater also, so.
Did you get a valuation done of the property, what the current assessed value would be? I know it is limited in use, potentially, but. Okay. Any other questions from council? Nope. Okay, hearing none, I think the next step then would be return to council again. We could take any questions that have been asked today and bring forward any further information, and hopefully we get to the point of making a decision. Thank you, everybody who presented and attended. Really appreciate your participation here tonight. We'll just take sort of 1 minute, and because I don't think everyone's going to stay for the next series of resolutions. So we'll take a quick recess. All right, folks, I think we're going to continue our council meeting here, so we'll end recess. And we'll move on to item 5, which is appointment to committees. There are no appointments tonight. And then move into item 6, introduction and reading of bylaws and resolutions. 6A, which is 601 Reed Drive restricted use. I'll hand this back over to Chair Planning Board, Councillor Drawn. Councillor.
Okay, thank you again, Your Worship. Yeah, so this item, restricted use application for 601 Reed Drive. Background, the City of Summerside has received a restricted use application from Roberts Holdings, Inc. for 601 Reed Drive, PID number 486423. This application will require City Council approval to allow a dormitory associated with a proposed commercial school on the property as a restricted use in the Service Commercial C2 zone. The dormitory will be located in a section of the existing building at 601 Reed Drive. The zoning bylaw does not have a definition for a dormitory. There is a definition from the Life Safety Code, and I'll just read that in here now. Dormitory is a building or a space in a building in which group sleeping accommodations are provided for more than 16 persons who are not members of the same family in one room or a series of closely associated rooms under joint occupancy and single management, with or without meals, but without individual cooking facilities. The bylaw is intended to allow a college and or university to have associated school premises. A school premise would include cafeteria, lab, library, residence/dormitory, gym, etc. Our understanding of the applicant's intention is to have a commercial school training facility on the property, teaching/training, interior wall assembly for housing projects. It's difficult to find housing for students or trainees for teaching terms. The applicant is proposing to provide their students or trainees with living accommodations in a dormitory style. The application was advertised in the January 28th edition of The Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. Explanation of this application process. In order to process a restricted use, the following steps are required. Step 1, the restricted use is read at a public meeting, and that step is taking place this evening. Step 2, Planning Board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to Council. And that step 2 will take place at the Planning Board meeting scheduled for June 17th. Is that correct? That seems a way off, but maybe that's... Oh, it isn't right. Okay, so March 4th. That's just left over from a previous meeting. So March 4th will be meeting number 2. Step 3, the restricted use is read to be adopted by Council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by vote of Council. Step 3 takes place at Council's second meeting, scheduled for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Please note that in accordance with Section 5.20 of the City Zoning Bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of Council in respect of the administration of this bylaw may appeal Council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission. Comments and questions. So we are now at the time in the application where we would invite the applicant to make any comments on behalf of Roberts Holdings, Inc.
Hello, thank you. My name is Tessa Roberts, and I'm here to represent the applicant today. So as you all know now, we have requested a change of use, which is restricted, and the best umbrellas for prescribed uses that we fell under were dormitory and commercial school, but they're quite misleading in terms of what we actually want to do here. So the best way I can kind of explain how we want to use this building is to explain our broader project. So Sustainabuild is the business that would be renting this, which is another one of our businesses under the Roberts Group of Companies. And it kind of came to life because we operate in a wide variety of different industries, and kind of the next logical step was residential construction. So we wanted to move into that. And We've taken a couple years to kind of look at the market. I don't think I need to convince anybody that we have a housing crisis. So we were kind of looking at the different ways and how we wanted to tackle that. And we've been working with the Offsite Construction Center at the University of New Brunswick, as well as some research grants with NRC IRAP. And we've decided that we want to do panelized construction. So this is very new in PEI, but it's not a new concept generally. So offsite construction is kind of one of the avenues that the government of Canada is kind of pushing to help address the housing crisis. So that's kind of like our foray into that. But then we were kind of looking at everything as a whole. And when you're building a home, your two kind of biggest expenses are materials and time. So materials generally are going to be the same whether you're doing a stick build or offsite construction. We have the benefit of using specialized equipment that optimizes your material use, so there are some savings there. But time was kind of our biggest piece of the puzzle that we wanted to address. So since we operate in such a wide variety of industries, we are taking it upon ourselves. We want to control everything from, Austin calls it tree to key. So we can do everything from groundwork. We have a lot of land holdings that we've kind of amassed over the last couple of years so that we can provide lots, foundations, the whole build with panels, every trade, all of the interior finishing, all the way until I hand you your key to the door. But that means we need a lot of quality control from A to Z, obviously. So one of the great things about offsite construction is you don't need everybody to be a high-skilled laborer. So we have hired a red seal carpenter. We have red seal electricians. We're going to be looking for HVAC and plumbing. But the great thing is we're kind of reducing this huge project of building a home down to repeatable little widgets. So you don't have to have a lot of education to do that. It's very trainable. It's just a task type thing. So it opens up the market for a lot of people that are looking for jobs. It's great for us because we can really kind of take anybody as long as they're ready and willing to learn. So the dormitory piece kind of mixes in with the second use, which I guess is classified as commercial school, but it's only for the use of our staff, and it's a training facility just so we can train on those individual widgets, because for us, quality is the most important piece of the puzzle. We want to provide accessible homes that are high quality. We're a PEI company. People talk around here like you're not going to have a great business if you're not doing it right. So we don't want to do training on site. We want them to master their skill in our training facility before we send them out on site. But we're not certifying anybody. It's really just for our staff to learn. And then from that, we have a lot of cases with our other businesses where people want to work, but they don't have a way to get there, or they can't find housing that they can afford close by, or they don't have a vehicle. So we wanted to create an opportunity for people to kind of get on their feet while they're training with us, and maybe like for a short term once they're in the field, where they can have accessible residence. Dormitory, when I hear that, I think of like college students, and that is not what this will be at all. We're going to have a full-time kind of manager to make sure everything's cleanly, clean up, maintenance and everything. Kind of one of the big things I know I've heard some people kind of have concerns about the dormitory style of lack of cleanliness or people not kind of picking up after themselves. Are going back to quality. If you can't keep your own room clean, I probably don't want you building someone's house. So they wouldn't last with us anyways. We came across this building, or it was brought to our attention. And Austin's here, he's just hiding in the back. Always has these like great ideas for repurposing buildings. So in 2020, we actually took over 149 Industrial Crescent, which was very underutilized, and I think it was empty when we took it over, and now I don't think there's a square foot of that building not being used. So repurposing buildings for our projects and growing is a really big piece of what we do, and we love Summerside, and we want to kind of keep that's where our head office is. It's really great to kind of keep everything central. So I'm rambling a little bit here. It was funny, I was sitting back there and I was like, oh, this is great, I'll get to sit down. And then as soon as I stand up, I forget how to talk. So we really feel that we can kind of make this building, give it new life. So Sustainabuild it's kind of my baby project. Like, I've raised it. And we want our showroom to be there as well. So kind of the way the facility will work, and there's a rendering of how we want to, I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh, perfect. I was like, can you guys see the TVs? So we want to kind of we're not blind to the fact that this is one of the main kind of veins into Summerside, and it's maybe not the prettiest building to look at right now. And if we want people to want us to build their homes, they probably don't want to come see us in a bit of a rundown building. So we really want to give it new life and provide our showroom that'll have like the opportunity for people to touch and feel what our products are, kind of see how the HVAC options work, and meet with somebody and see what your design would look like, and we can walk them through what our kind of prescribed designs are. So that would be kind of like the center module where city flooring used to be. And then the piece that kind of comes out to the front, it's the mostly kind of gray piece there, is where the dormitories would be, so very accessible to staff. And then there's an extension on the back, kind of east side, that would house a different one of our businesses that's kind of outgrowing its current space, and that's Maritime Industrial Services. So they do commercial overhead doors. They just don't have enough storage space in their existing building, so that gives them some more room for that. So I know that there may have been some kind of misunderstanding. I've heard from people in the community that they thought we were gonna like create this commercial school and have like college students hanging out, and that is not at all what we're doing. So I really appreciate this opportunity to clarify that, and I'm gonna kind of turn it over to my colleague, Ben. He is one of our newer team members. He's an engineer, and he understands the engineering better than me, so I'm gonna let him speak to that.
Great job, Tess. Thanks so much. So I just passed around kind of an overview of some of the benefits for what Sustainabuild's looking to do here. And so my background working in a few different places, but as a general contractor. So one of the really intriguing things about Sustainabuild is really kind of looking at the traditional building model in addition to off-site with that general contractor role. So being able to have a lead in each of the key scopes of works and trades allows us to build a skilled team underneath them that is focused on one project and one customer at a time. So with the demand for housing and with the number of projects that general contractors usually take on, you end up with subcontractors often taking on, maybe 5, 10, 15 projects. And what ends up happening is you have scheduling issues and difficulties in maintaining what you can promise the customer. So we have a number of advantages with this model. So first and foremost is, so you think of the weather conditions we have, framing walls out in weather like this, on your hands and knees, the traditional method, it's, the future is here, and we're looking to take advantage of that. So part of the building methodology is automated systems that you can work at basically waist height, rolling systems, automated nailers that really provide the efficiency and labor that you just can't achieve on a traditional building site, as well as you have a much greater precision on the waste materials that are generated. So we're not going to be filling dumpsters on site of cutoffs that we measured too wrong. Everything is precision engineered from the get-go, modeled in a 3D model, and then broken down into panelized sections. So this provides a number of benefits. And just talking to builders on the island, best case scenario, you've got a top level builder. You're about 4 to 8 months in traditional build if all of those subcontractors are prioritizing you. So our goal is to cut that by about 75%, as well as have one point of contact, whether it's trees to keys or cradle to grave, the full 360 scope of providing what a customer is looking for and answering all the questions at one location, and not having to deal with, GC, a couple subs, some infighting along that. So I think with those sort of strategic things combined, based off of the housing report that's put out, there's going to be about a gap of 835 new builds that are needed every single year moving forward, and that's probably only going to increase. So we have that as one sort of lever, as well as we're expected to lose about 25% of our high-end tradespeople by 2030 due to retirement. So, sitting here where we're at, that's a 5-year window where we're really going to see that change take place. And so the dormitory, or the living, let's not call it dormitory, the living opportunity for our staff, whether they're coming off island or down east, up west, wherever that may be, providing that sort of team environment. It's adjacent to where our office will be located, our showroom will be located. So it's going to be world class in terms of the accommodations and what is going to be experienced by our neighbors and the community surrounding us. It's if you kind of go through some of the list here. So another key piece, I guess, to this is, I think if we get an opportunity to really show what this model can do, I think this is going to really shift and change just the building methodology and the mindset that's, unfortunately kind of been, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing, stuck in probably a decade or two behind where other parts of the world are building, especially in cold climates. So there's the opportunity for quite a significant job creation, the supporting suppliers and groups and communities around that would be contributing to making these projects come to life. The other key piece that Tess noted on was there's a really an intriguing R&D aspect in terms of the efficiencies that we're planning to gain in this process, the insight that will come out of it, working with academic groups in terms of, going from semi-automation to full automation, and with the future of robotics and AI and technology, and I've done a lot of work in high-end commercial stuff in the background, and it's really applying these existing engineering principles to the residential aspect, which just was kind of negated in the past just due to the upfront requirements in terms of engineering and planning and model development. But the neat thing that once you go through that exercise, and we're planning to have opportunities for various levels of potential clients to enter the market. So we can adjust the size of the homes, we can adjust the finishes of the homes, and we're even planning to integrate mortgage lending as B lending and A lending, and various avenues for people to get into their first home. Another neat aspect of this system is, say you're a young couple and you want to get into your first home, you see kids coming down the line. We can plan from day one with the various systems that maybe year 3, 4, 5, you come back and say, hey, little Johnny or Susie popped out and we need a bedroom. So, place the call and we can integrate that into the previous design, have everything on record. And another key aspect is when you build with us, build with Sustain-A-Build, we'll consider you a customer for life. So we'll follow up down the line. We'll ask how the systems are running. You'll get a set of as-builts, all the information for warranty, all the systems. You're not calling around to, who did this builder? I don't know. All of that information is get-go from the beginning right to the end. So putting yourself in the shoes of someone who's, doesn't know much about lumber or HVAC systems. We want to work with them hand in hand to develop some education for them on that, but also provide the most optimal living conditions that we can. So part of that is keeping these really tight, really well insulated, and really efficient energy systems in terms of heating and cooling. We're potentially looking into adopting solar shingles with backup battery packs to get away from the traditional generators. So you kind of have an integrated renewable source of energy there. And as we continue to do this, the other factor is the scalability. So traditional small scale builder, they're somewhat limited on the labor piece on site of what they can do in a season, where we're able to actually run the factory 365 and build an inventory, basically have, I don't want to say this, but it's an advanced IKEA set for your house. So we can have a yard that's have an inventory as we queue up, and when your time's to go, the trailers come. To give you an idea of time frame, so we're looking, a story and a half house, 1,800 square feet, about a week for the foundations to go in, and within 24 hours, your house is standing, framed in and tight. The next day, the finishing crews come in, and we work in that overlapping sequence. Again, with no sub-trades bickering and fighting about who parked where or why is my stuff in your way. Everybody, from the head office to the way we train and bring people through, we all have a target in mind. And A, it's completing the project, but B, it's the quality for the end customer, and that word of mouth carrying on from project to project as we scale and build out our operations. So it's, the stars are somewhat aligned in terms of where the technology is currently at, where the market's currently at, and continuing to be the beauty of PEI, continuing to bring those who have never been here. They come once and they get here, especially in the summertime, and they're looking for a place to build. So that's kind of the overview of some of the economic benefits that are associated with our build and our operations. I guess speaking more towards the facility, so we've already engaged an architect to ensure that we, in terms of life safety, fire requirement options, and assemblies. So we're going through that process right now. As you can see, the upgrades exterior are quite significant from what's currently there. And we really want to, improve upon what, I've heard from others that can be quite a challenging experience building a home and working with a builder. A lot of unknowns that we're hoping to answer basically from day one, right until you're sitting on your couch. So that's kind of my 2 cents on where we're at.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very thorough. Is there more?
I was just going to ask if you had any questions.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. Yeah, I guess the next step would be if there's anyone here from the public that has any questions or comments that they'd like to ask of you, and if not, we'll move to maybe any questions or concerns that council may have. And I'll just remind council that we are to reserve our own stance on things for the third council meeting, and that we're obligated to keep an open mind throughout all these applications as we proceed through the information gathering. So with that being said, if there's any questions or anything, we just we'll move on to council. Councillor Adams, Deputy Mayor's no.
Thank you. Thank you guys for the presentation. So I guess, I don't know, I'm on planning board, but this is also in the ward I represent. So I have some questions that some people at home are watching, and I've gotten a few messages and we had a few families that were going to come in, but due to some scheduling changes this week that they couldn't make it, but they are watching online. So I have 12 so, but they won't be big. Okay, so you had mentioned it's not a school per se, so there's no provincial requirement for like a school-based curriculum type of.
No, so we won't be doing like any kind of certifications or anything. It's literally just, like if you take the concept of like you have a new employee and you're going to sit with them and show them how to use your computer system, it's that, but for panelized construction with our employees.
Right. Okay.
That's all.
And as you can imagine, when this was for sale and then when it sold, it was, I couldn't even beat it at a Corey what was going on. He wouldn't tell me. So he said, "You're going to be happy. You're going to be happy." So that's all he kept saying. So
Perfect.
yeah, he said it's going to get cleaned up. So that was his positive spin on it to everybody that kept asking him. So it's good. So no provincial requirement because it's not a school. So Sustainabuild, am I saying that right?
Yep.
So is that a franchise or is that something you've developed?
That's something that we've developed, and it didn't kind of come out of thin air. We like went out to Edmonton and there's a company there called Accolades, and they do a very, very similar thing, but they build 3 homes a day right now. They've been around for a really long time and they have a lot of really expensive equipment. So we're not them, but with working with them and working with the Offsite Construction Research Center, we've kind of like really narrowed what our vision is and what our processes will be. So that's how Sustainabuild came to light. We kind of picked what we liked from different things and created our own little business.
Perfect. Your access to the highway, what is your access to the highway from that?
It's the shared access coming into kind of those two
Okay, and then it goes, okay. And the parking, is there sufficient parking there or do you have to?
With our development permit, I'll probably be looking for a slight variance in parking. But I don't have those numbers in front of me because it's on a different application.
No, that's fine. And so the green space, with that, there's green space, like sort of explain it towards the roundabout. That is currently yours as well. That's in that parcel. What's the plans for that area?
So to start, the only addition will be a road going around with an overhead door. That will be part of the training center. We'll have some saws and some equipment like that we'll be accessing in. So if you're looking on the map, basically you would come in and for the front left and kind of tuck in around back is the only addition. That'll be basically right along the building. The rest will remain green.
Okay, so it'd be the back of the building would be seeing more traffic than?
The face closest to, right along, I don't know if you guys can see.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, right along.
Towards the roundabout.
Yeah.
That end.
Yeah, and that'll just be periodic for maybe moving a few saws and stuff in.
And the hours of operation?
I don't think we've set them, but I expect for a general commercial building, it would be pretty standard. We're not going to be running saws at 11 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And security, what would the security be for the building with people living in it all the time?
So there will be a manager type that sort of oversees that whole area. That's one of the items that we'll definitely work through with the architect in terms of surveillance. And if required, periodically we could have on-site security if that deemed necessary. But I believe through video monitoring, we should be able to, and active alerts, goes to our phone or whatnot, and potentially even have alarm systems that residents can pull outside of, a fire alarm if there's an emergency, that our team gets alerted and can be to site.
And the reason I ask is because we do have young families.
Yeah.
We have several that just back right on the property. They're not against anything going there. They just sort of want to know what to expect and what. And they had also said, like, would there be an opportunity, like, they're up for if you guys want to drop by type of thing and just have a chat and see what they said they'd like for you to sort of see their backyard looking at you. So that was sort of their offer to you, so that you could understand like what they would be seeing as
Yep.
well, I guess, was, so I said that
Absolutely, yeah.
I would mention that. Yeah, so the security with the young families. The inventory yard you had mentioned, where's that?
That is not at this facility. So
Okay.
we are, our actual manufacturing facility will be completely separate in a different
I
location.
misunderstood, I wasn't sure.
Oh, no, that's
I'd
okay,
say
for
question
sure.
mark beside that, so. And then the other one I have is, so there will be people living there, the full-time manager, and you'll work at the security as that, that position rolls out. But what about like meals and so on for?
So there's a very large shared kitchen. So everybody will have access to that, and there's pantry space and a dining hall type thing. And they can make their own meals and have their own storage and lots of fridges so everybody can share. And then the person that's kind of managing the facility will oversee to make sure that's always kept clean and organized, and we don't have any kind of issues with that.
Right. Okay. I think that's all that I have. But, yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I just have a couple questions, and I think I know the answer to the first one, but I want to ask it anyway. There were ads up online for plumbing and carpentry, and I think electrical instructors, at a building in proximity to yours that was advertising itself as a college. And I just wanted to make sure that, and confirm, I guess, that that's a totally unrelated, non-Roberts Holdings venture.
First time I've heard of it.
Good, good. And then the other thing was, I know you guys had been featured on, I think it was through UNB, with the facility that you were planning to do or have planned to do at one time in Slim Park. Is
Yes.
this sort of an evolution of that?
Yeah, so that building kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with the province put out a request for expressions of interest, and that building was included in it, so it kind of halted our negotiations on that, although we were very close. And it was like a massive empty airplane hangar, which is perfect for a manufacturing facility. But that really put a hold on everything for kind of everybody that submitted an application to that. So we decided we need to pivot because we can't keep losing seasons. So it is an evolution of that. And the reason it was on UNB, so they have an offsite construction research center, and we're doing research projects with them. And we're working with them to optimize our factory layout and reduce bottlenecks and make sure we have adequate space for storage and everything flows perfectly.
Okay, no problem. I hope this doesn't seem like an interrogation or anything. It's
No,
just
no,
through the
it's great.
information gathering things. No, perfect. That's great. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Snow.
Yeah, just quickly, I had I want to say privilege, I guess, of meeting with Tessa and Austin. I can't remember how long ago, but it was a while ago now. And they were talking about other stuff, actually, but this was brought up in their plans on this type of building system. And at that point, I was very interested in the concept of it. And it's still, every time I hear you guys talk about it, I think it's just outside zoning. I just want to say how impressed I am with the whole concept and hearing you guys speak about it, and how passionate you were the first time I met, and the passion's still there. So, and that was quite a while ago. So, yeah, whatever happens here, I'm just glad to see you in Summerside and investing in buildings here in Summerside and wanting to do business here. So, thanks.
Thank you.
That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
The question that I'm wondering about, and maybe you can't answer it now, but you're talking about, say, younger couples starting homes or whatnot. Is that going to be the only type of home? Like, are you thinking of things like smaller homes? You know how when people are downsizing, they want to go to something smaller. Have you given any thought to that in your in your plans?
We've given a lot of thought to that, actually. That's kind of my domain. So what we're not going to be a custom home builder because you lose a lot of the efficiencies of offsite construction when you go that route. So what we're doing is designing kind of a selection of different plans that meet the needs of varying people. So one thing that we are incorporating is that in every single plan, you can live on one floor. So there will be a primary bedroom, a bathroom, laundry, kitchen, living room, dining room. Everything will always be on the bottom floor. In case people maybe get a two-story home and then they're getting older and they don't want to use stairs, but they don't want to move. But we have a lot of people. We have the rest of the subdivision in Primrose Point in Cornwall, and their houses out there are huge. And we had to set up kind of a website so people could communicate with us as the developer. And a lot of the things were people that love their subdivision but don't need a 5-bedroom house anymore, and they wanted to downsize. So we took a lot of kind of input from them, and just kind of talking to people in the public generally in what people are looking for in homes, and really trying to make sure we're ticking all the boxes. And another thing that zoning pending for different homes is obviously getting into the housing market is really difficult for people. So we want to make it more accessible by adding options like over your garage, like a secondary suite that you can rent out, and that income can count towards your mortgage application. So letting people kind of have that option, or there's a lot of families now that have multi-generational living, and that allows for that. So we just wanted to make sure we're kind of ticking all the boxes for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, I will hand it back over to Mayor Dan.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Ben. And Councillor Durant. We'll now move on to item 6C. This is 110, 136, 138 Rufus official plan, Rufus Street official plan and zoning amendments. Councillor Durant, this is back to you. We've got a few in front of you here, so
Yeah.
I hope you brought some water.
Down to 6 mils. All right. Resolution COS 25-022, moved by Deputy Mayor Snow and seconded by myself. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304188, 110 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning amendment 0015 was declared read a first time at a city council meeting on February 4th, 2025. And whereas city council wishes to rescind their decision on bylaw amendment 0015, be it resolved that resolution COS 25-010 be rescinded. Should I read the zoning amendment 0015?
I don't think you need to read
Since we already
the attachment there, Councillor. Councillor, you move that and seconded
Moved by Deputy Mayor Snow, and
by
I seconded by myself.
Okay. Resolution COS 25-022, moved by Deputy Mayor Snow, seconded by Councillor Duran, is on the floor. Any further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried, Councillor.
Resolution COS 25-023, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McColman. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304196, 136 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning amendment 0017 was declared read a first time at a city council meeting on February 4th, 2025. And whereas City Council wishes to rescind their decision on bylaw amendment 0017, be it resolved that resolution COS 25-012 be rescinded.
Resolution COS 25-023, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor McColman, is on the floor. Any further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried, Councillor.
Resolution COS 25-024, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Morrison. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304204, 138 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning amendment 0019 was declared read a first time at a city council meeting on February 4th, 2025. And whereas city council wishes to rescind their decision on bylaw amendment 0019. Be it resolved that resolution COS 25-014 be rescinded.
Resolution COS 25-024, moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Morrison, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried.
Resolution COS 25-025, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trenholm. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304188, 110 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0015R be hereby declared as read a first time. Zoning amendment 0015R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under authority vested in it by Section 18 and Section 19 of the Planning Act, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for PID number 304188, 110 Rufus Street, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as medium-density residential R3 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of light industrial M1 zone.
Thank you, Councilor. Resolution COS 25-025, moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Trenholm, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? I have a quick question. This then will come back to where are we at? I'm trying to get where we are on this list. This is then going to come back to council again after these. This will move to planning board next. Is that where we? Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried. Councilor.
Resolution COS 25-026, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Adams. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304188, 110 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0015R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting, be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0015R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred back to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Thank you, Councilor. Resolution COS 25-026, moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Adams, is on the floor. Any further comments, questions, statements from members of the council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Resolution's carried. Councilor.
Resolution COS 25-027, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304196, 136 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0017R be hereby declared as read a first time. Zoning amendment 0017R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under authority vested in it by Section 18 and Section 19 of the Planning Act, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for PID number 304196, 136 Rufus Street, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as medium-density residential R3 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of light industrial M1 zone.
Resolution COS 25-027, moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Snow, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The resolution is carried.
Resolution COS 25-028, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor McColman. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304196, 136 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0017R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0017R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred back to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Thank you, Councilor. Resolution COS 25-028, moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor McColman, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The resolution is carried. Councilor.
Two more. Resolution COS 25-029, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morrison. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304204, 138 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0019R be hereby declared as read a first time. Zoning amendment 0019R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under authority vested in it by Section 18 and Section 19 of the Planning Act, hereby enacts as follows. The zoning for PID number 304204, 138 Rufus Street, shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, is designated as medium-density residential R3 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of light industrial M1 zone.
Thank you, Councillor. Resolution COS 25-029, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Morrison, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is carried. Councillor.
Resolution COS 25-030, moved by myself, and I ran out of time, so I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Trenholm. When I say I ran out of time, usually before council meetings, I go around and get my seconders. Yeah. Whereas an application was received from Cameron Apartments, Inc. for a zoning amendment for PID number 304204, 138 Rufus Street, from light industrial M1 zone to medium-density residential R3 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0019R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting, be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0019R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred back to the Planning Board for review and recommendation.
Resolution COS 25-030, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Trenholm, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from council? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The resolution is carried. Thank you, Councillor. We'll move, these desks aren't big enough sometimes. We'll now move to 60, Resolution COS 25-021, multi-year funding agreement to Generation XX and BGC Prince County. This came from Committee of the Whole at our last Committee of the Whole meeting, moved to Committee of the Whole by recommendation of Finance Committee. And with this, I'll pass it over to Deputy Mayor Snow.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have a resolution and then some supporting documentation. Do you want me to read the resolution first or supporting documentation, then the resolution? Okay, resolution COS 25-021, moved by myself, Councillor Snow, and seconded by Councillor Justin Duran. Be it resolved that the City of Summerside enter into a multi-year funding agreement with BGC Prince County and Generation XX. Schedule B, multiple year agreement, is attached. Would you like me to read in Schedule B?
I don't think it's necessary unless there are changes from the Committee of the Whole meeting. If there's no changes.
Okay.
Okay, with that, Resolution COS 25-021, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Snow, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council?
Yep.
Is that what I said? Moved by Councillor Snow, seconded by Councillor Duran. Resolution COS 25-021. Comments, questions, statements from council? Councillor Adams.
I just wanted to follow up on my comments about just the way this is being done. I had mentioned it before when it was brought to us. I understand, I believe we should have multi-year funding for both of these. I just don't think they should be in the same agreement. I believe a multi-year agreement, if you have more than one person in it, it's bring them together to offer one service, not two different companies offering two different services. So that's why I'll be voting the way
I am. Councillor Trenholm?
Yeah, I just happened to pull up the community support program, and this is what it says: who's not eligible is organizations already receiving city contributions of any kind that may be set out in a legal agreement in the city, a memorandum of understanding, or any other documented arrangement. And I'm only bringing that because I do know that, and it's great work that with rapid housing, but I know that there's a considerable amount of money that's going to the Boys and Girls Club in regards to the rapid housing. So I'm just curious if that funding fits with policy, because we're already giving them money, and it says that if we are, then they're not eligible to receive funding through the community support program. Because I think that's a pretty big question.
My understanding is that rapid housing funding is actually not our money, correct? It's sort of, are we just the avenue to assist in getting the money to where it needs to go?
That would be my understanding as well, but we have Director of Finance here, Kristen Dunsford, who can confirm or provide comment.
That is correct.
Okay, and that's what I thought, but I know when it says of any kind, so it's in city contributions of any kind. So I'm thinking, well, that would be a kind. Like, it's not directly coming from the city, but it's funneling. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, I guess. Thanks.
Yeah, also something certain to look at. I would think that we as a city purchase tickets for Generation XX fundraisers, Boys and Girls Club fundraisers, a variety of organizations. I don't know if that would qualify as funding, but anyhow.
And maybe we need to revisit that statement, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to word it differently, but yeah. Okay, thanks.
I do remember from, being on the finance committee at different terms, that was a question that did come up. And I think at that time, and Director Kristen, you can correct me, but I think that was debated somewhat by senior staff. And it was felt that if there was any type of funding provided in the form of like a grant or a multi-year funding, then there was an expectation that there wouldn't be other types of funding given or tickets purchased or those kinds of things. So I'm just kind of saying that because that was one of the reasons why that came up in the bylaw for it, or the policy for the community grant. I just wonder, would it be helpful for us as a council, because they're both good organizations, could we even get an internal legal opinion on that through our legal department, just to clarify it?
I don't see why we couldn't ask our legal for that. I guess in this situation, though, as well, to differentiate, the RHI funding was for 2024. This is 2025 and beyond. So these aren't the same. These are not the same years. So it would really, I guess that goes back to the last year's decision at budget time by all of council to provide funding to the Boys and Girls Club through the community grant process in the same year that there was a RHI dollar. So it's a question last year in fiscal 2024. This would be in 2025.
And in fairness, I think we did the community grant funding before the rapid housing funding might have became available. Do you know what I mean? Like we did our community grant and then the rapid housing came after. And that's when we were looking, or it went out to the community to look for interested parties to take part in that, so, yeah.
Certainly no reason why we can't have, get an opinion, at least from staff, to look at, to make sure that we're following all the terms of our community grant.
Yeah, and I guess I just see the budget line coming in, like what's going to. So I think if we have staff follow up, or just to make sure that we do have a duty to follow procedural, fairness, and just, I really want to make sure we are. So.
All right. Oh, sorry, Councilor Rowan. No, go ahead.
No, I just to echo on your comments, Councilor Trenholm, I think it would, really show
Because I know as counselors, some have been, very, making sure that we give the right message, that it doesn't look like favoritism or whatnot. And I think, whether it's small or a large amount or multi-year, I think if we're doing that, then it puts council in a good light, that, we're just following up on it.
Any further comments, questions, statements from council? Okay, resolution COS 25-021, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Snow, is on the floor. I'll now call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Was there one? One? So the ayes have it.
We're doing this one for the multi-year?
Yes. I'll go by a show of hands then, so call for,
I would just like to get an opinion before the vote.
okay, so the resolution's on the floor. It goes to a vote. Council could, we're going to talk about our procedural options, but there's a resolution on the floor for a vote. This came to Finance Committee, went to Committee of the Whole, and now is at Council. So we should have the vote on the resolution that's on the floor.
I'm just could person say to table or is it too late to table just so we can have get feedback from the staff?
Yeah, you can make a motion to table. You would need to put a motion to table on the floor. Another member of council would need to vote on it. I would need to second it. Then that will go to a vote. If the tabling motion was approved by council, then there'd be no further discussion.
Okay, sure. Well, I would like to just put a motion on the floor, just to table it and just for further review, just to make sure we're following the appropriate policy.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion to table on the floor, moved by Councillor Trenholm, seconded by Councillor McCollum. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Sorry, can you just do a quick show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the motion is tabled, resolution is tabled.
Your worship, could I just ask for a little further direction on what exactly it is we're reviewing?
We can't talk about it now, so once a motion's been tabled, there is no
Okay,
further
so
discussion
there'll be no
about it.
further review then until such time as that comes back then?
We'll have to take the minutes from the discussion. Again, once a motion to table has been tabled, then
So
there's no
hence-
further discussion. So based on the motion that was put on the floor by Councillor Trenholm, that is the motion that we have to work from.
Hence why I asked, so that there's no expectation of that.
That's it. It'll come back to another meeting.
Okay. Yep. Okay. That's direct.
With that, we'll move to resolution COS 25-031. Councillor Snow, is this, you're taking this one as well, are you?
This one as well. Resolution COS 25-031. Moved by myself, Councillor Corey Snow, and seconded by Councillor Justin Duran. Whereas the City Housing Accelerator Fund half agreement with CMHC, the city includes as a funded initiative the development of a climate change adaptation plan, and whereas Natural Resources Canada, NRCAN, has partnered with AIM Network to offer technical assistance to Canadian municipalities for climate resilience planning through the Climate Resilient Coastal Communities Program, which include training and technical assistance programs to municipal staff, elected officials, and the public, and which will involve building coastal resilience plans, creating municipal planning roadmaps, defining projects, creating financing strategies, and increasing municipal competency to manage climate risk in coastal areas. Be it resolved that the City of Summerside formally agree to join as a participant in the Climate Resilient Coastal Communities Program and to pay the participant fee of $15,000 plus taxes.
Moved by Councillor Snow. Is there a second, or Councillor? Councillor Snow, is there a second? You moved, second.
Oh, Councillor Duran.
Resolution COS 25-031, moved by Councillor Snow, seconded by Councillor Duran, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from council? I think staff are going to give a brief, quick update on background on what this was.
Yeah, thank you. So essentially, the resolution does a good job of outlining it, but AIM Network has been doing similar climate work with a number of other municipalities working on the half file throughout the region. So we're following suit, and obviously the HAF initiative is underway and funding is flowing, and this is simply one step in that whole process.
Any further comments, questions from council? Seeing here none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried. Thank you, council. With that, we move into department reports. We'll start with the Department of Finance. Councillor McDougall is not here with us today. Did Councillor McDougall reach out to someone to provide his report? Or oh, great. Councillor Morrison, over to you.
So the finance report. Good evening to the residents and business of the City of Summerside and my colleagues on City Council. Our overdue utility accounts receivable as of February 7th, 2025 show a decrease from what was reported for January, but is still concerning as they are $77,000 higher than what was past due this time last year. Although the amount greater than 60 days past due has not changed since January, it is lower than what was reported for February of 2024. The current balances are: total overdue balance is $339,400 compared to $420,300 on January the 14th, 2025. Approximately 10.2% or $34,600 of the overdue balance is greater than 60 days past due, and this compares to 8.2% or $34,500 on January the 14th, 2025. Customers with overdue balances are strongly encouraged to call one of our customer service representatives, email customer@servicesummerside.ca, or call 902-432-1230 to make payment arrangements to avoid disconnection of services. The preparation for our 2025-2026 capital budget and operating budgets is well underway, and Council began their deliberations with several meetings being held this month. We expect to present this budget to our businesses, nonprofit organizations, and residents on Tuesday, March 11th at 12 p.m. and vote on the budget on Thursday, March 27th at 12 p.m. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report, and either myself or Director of Financial Services are available to take your questions. And I'd like to thank the Director of Finance, Kristen Dunsford, for that report.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Any questions for Councillor Morrison? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7A, Representative Trenholm for Community Services Tourism.
Sure, thank you. Ooh, nice to stand up. For community services at the Summerside Dome, staff welcomed many regular user groups alongside new organizations utilizing the facility. Staff also are seeing an increase in teams traveling from outside the city to host practices and games at the venue. Additionally, birthday party packages continue to be a popular choice with numerous bookings. Now, Wedge Golf has seen increasingly great traffic, often reaching full capacity in multiple days throughout the week. The program runs Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Active Living Summerside. So Active Living has been busy with the Active Winter launch and hosting fun programs to encourage the community to enjoy everything the season has to offer. The Monster Snow Hill, if anybody's tried it, it's pretty fun and slippery, has a new location this year. It's Queen Elizabeth Park, sorry. Confederation Bridge, my speech therapy is not working there. The Aquafit classes saw strong participation with 1,137 people attending sessions. Winter swimming classes have begun, offering private, semi-private, and parent and tot group options, with 56 children enrolled. The Bronze Medallion and Basic First Aid program also kicked off with 10 participants. The Holland College Marine Center Training Center booked the center 4 times, and Tri-PEI successfully hosted their clinic. The box office and ticket sales, there was actually 29 convention hall bookings for the month. That's pretty much almost one every day. Pretty amazing, including many regular clients and a few new ones. Staff are seeing an increase in post-holiday gatherings between the convention center and the bowling lanes. The box office was busy with 4 Caps games and lots of inquiries about the upcoming, or now we could say previous, rivalry series and the curling events. They're coming up next month, I believe. The outlook for February has pre-booked with 28 8 bookings, as well as the rivalry series event using the convention halls for the days. Caps will host 5 games in February as well. So for sets, staff kicked off a new year with lively celebrations at the Dome and Credit Union Place, offering a lineup of free activities for kids and families. In January, the local organizing committee for both the rivalry series and Curling Canada Nationals conveyed to advance event preparations. The sets team was heavily focused on the final planning and execution of the rivalry series throughout the month. Lastly, meetings with partnered national sport organizations, Hockey Canada, Baseball Canada, and Curling Canada are ongoing in preparation for major events coming to the new year. In closing, I just want to thank JP Durache for well-informed information there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCollum.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening to my colleagues and people that are watching on the live stream or TV. I'd like to thank Director Kendra Gunn for this public report. And to begin with, the ads were posted for a wastewater treatment plant operator, temporary ice maker, and seasonal laborer. These competitions resulted in the hiring of Samantha Durant as a temporary ice maker, Aaron Paw as a seasonal employee, and Zach Culleton as a wastewater treatment plant operator. So congratulations to all 3. Angie Ramsey started in the role of customer service representative with Municipal Services, and we'd like to welcome her on board. A welcome also to Noah Goss, who started with the Summerside Police Service on February 11th as a probationary constable. An ad was posted to for an equipment operator with Municipal Services, and staff offered a City Hall tour talk with participants of the Women's Employability Program through East Prince Women's Information Center. Staff processed regular weekly and bi-weekly payroll and record of employment and continued to prepare for distribution of employees, council, fire, department T4s for the end of the year. We are currently waiting for updated pension adjustments, which will be added to T4 information, and they are coming very soon for staff members. Staff attended the monthly Joint Operations Safety and Health meeting, as well as a similar meeting with the CAO in attendance. Staff presented to directors regarding first aid training, regulations, changes, which took effect on January 1st, 2025. Staff also liaised with the city's pension plan custodian and insurance company in response to questions from staff and pensioners and assisted with processing of Workers' Compensation Board claims. The department continued working with various city departments and external legal counsel in support of the city's staffing, human resource needs, and legal matters involving reviewing contracts, leases, and supporting legal work involving civil claims on behalf of and against the city. Notice of senior leadership incoming changes. I would just like to mention in closing a couple of things for our residents and overall community. The following City of Summerside announcement has already been posted on Facebook concerning our senior leadership updates. And we just want to, on behalf of Mayor and Council, be thanking Gordon McFarland for his 19 years of service to the City of Summerside. He will be with us until March. We want to send a big congratulations to him on his appointment to Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC, and wish him all the best. As well, Mr. McFarland's departure will be in March of 2025, and at this time, we also want to acknowledge that Deputy CAO, JP DeRosier, will be appointed to acting CAO for a 6-month period, and we just want to congratulate him as well. So that concludes my report, and I'll just thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCollum. Move to Municipal Services Representative, Councillor Morrison. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Works, Water and Sewer Utilities and Highlights. The water system annual report has been completed and published on the city's website. The customer of the water utility can see the test results for the drinking water in the community within this report. Operations Group has been repairing several potholes that appear this time of year as freeze and thaw cycles disrupt and break asphalt roadways in a few areas. The temporary repair is completed with cold patch product, which lasts approximately 2 weeks. The traveling public is reminded to drive with care to avoid potholes. If potholes are seen, please call 902-432-1268 to report for prompt repairs. Operations assisted creating the snow hill for the Public Snow Fund this month at Queen Elizabeth Park. And the new medical center on Granville Street has had its water service turned on as it progresses toward completion. Electric utility highlights. An open house was held in the community to get feedback on community priorities for an upcoming decision of electric generation investment. The documents from the event are published on the city's website. The event had good attendance with great discussion on what is important to the electricity customers of Summerside. Several developments in the city have been completed for servicing. The new Kent building, new apartment building on East Drive, and the work is ongoing for upgrades on Winter and Spring Streets. And I'd like to thank Director Greg Goody for that report. And I would be remiss if I didn't again mention the fact about the great job the electric department or the employees and all the staff are doing on keeping the lights on in Summerside under these trying times. So I'd like to thank them for that.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Cameron, I don't think Councillor Cameron is with us anymore, but he's got Councillor Adams.
Yeah, he signed off. He's under the weather. So Culture Summerside, sorry. The following report captures some of the highlights from the middle of January to middle of February time period. Tomorrow is the Mayor's Heritage Tea, and it's going to be here. It is here, correct? Okay, yeah. This is where I'm going. So the City of Summerside Heritage and Cultural Awards will be presented at this tea. This represents a wide range of heritage and cultural activities in the community that happen in 2024. So that's here tomorrow at 1:30. Lori Ellis, the Director of Culture Summerside, and Culture Programming Coordinator Marlene Campbell were among others that were presented with CIBCA Excellence Awards. That's from the Canada India Business and Cultural Association at the Canada India Multicultural Festival, and that was at the end of 2024. It was a great event with vibrant performances and delicious cuisine. And National Flag Day, we just celebrated that. Culture Summerside celebrated the flag through an informative and lively vignette presented by PI actor and musician Mark Haynes. And if you go to Culture Summerside or City Summerside Facebook page, that was shared on the 15th. 60 Days of Fame exhibition. Perceptions of Nature is the title. Evangeline Region visual artist Edna Gallant has given her 60 Days of Fame exhibit, and that's at the McNaught History Center and Archives in Summerside. And that's going to be on for February and March. The official opening was on the 6th, and the event was well attended. Several purchases of the artist's work took place. That evening, Perceptions of Nature was viewed, and it can be viewed Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the McNaught History Center and Archives, and that's on 75 Spring Street, and it's free admission. Culture Summerside is currently working on the development of the 2025 Summerside Lobster Carnival program. Details will be announced in the coming weeks. I did see they had a little reminder of the dates coming up. This year's entertainment, as always, is an exciting lineup of island and maritime talent. Returning to the 25 Carnival is the East Coast Amusements Midway, culinary demonstrations, taste testing with Chef Pendergast, PEI Youth Talent Competition, lobster suppers, lobster trap stacking competition, cardboard boat races, community barbecue, and the carnival and parade, and much, much more. Culture Summerside has been awarded a grant from the Community Museum Association's Museums Development Grant Program to further work in the areas of collection management, more specifically the intellectual order, standards of care, and storage for artifacts. And that's all I have for Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, for Councillor Cameron. With that, we'll move to Technical Services Representative, Councillor Duran. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Director Aaron McDonald for preparing the report. Preparations are underway for the 2025 construction season, but a number of private construction projects are continuing throughout the winter. Staff are continuing with the process of preparing budgets for the 2025 capital projects. Staff have started the preliminary stages of designing and preparing some tenders for this upcoming season. This work will continue over the next couple of months. It's anticipated that the first few tenders will go out in early April to be ready for May construction starts. The planning and development staff continue having discussions with various developers who are contemplating developments. This month again, staff have a number of planning related matters going through the various processes with council. Staff have received the signed amendments from the last year's amendments to our official plan and zoning bylaw. So the new bylaw is in effect for developments for the upcoming season. 6 building permits with a value of just over $1.67 million were issued for the month of January. We issued 2 commercial permits and 1 industrial. And on the residential side, we issued 1 permit for a 4-unit apartment building, 2 for deck and accessory building permits. And developers are stopping in and speaking to staff for assistance with their proposed projects for this year. And it's also a great time for our citizens to ask for assistance with their projects that they may have planned for 2025. Tech Services.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. Deputy Mayor Snow.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to start by thanking Director Mike Tuska for the report. Following is a brief summary of the Office of Economic Development. Business retention. Summerside Economic Development Office has prioritized business retention as a cornerstone of its efforts. Over the past month, continued follow-up from the Triage Business Survey has remained a primary focus. The office has reached out to over 60 local businesses to engage in one-on-one discussions. So far, over 15 in-person and virtual meetings have been conducted to better understand, discuss, and document areas of opportunity and concern for the businesses operating in Summerside. Areas of exploration include available space needs, cost of doing business, labor, and collaboration. These important insights and conversations help drive our efforts in being responsive and proactive in the services we provide, drive us towards internal and external collaboration to drive success and help support our local businesses. Virtual Power Plant, the Summerside Exchange, in collaboration with Natural Resources Canada, has launched an ambitious Virtual Power Plant Challenge. This groundbreaking project seeks to transform energy management by seamlessly integrating various distributed energy resources, including solar panels, wind turbines, battery storage systems, smart meters, and demand response mechanisms into a cohesive and highly effective virtual power system. The initiative focuses on leveraging Summerside's advanced energy assets to drive economic development and foster innovation, maximizing investment in renewable energy. The challenge has received 3 submissions currently, and these submissions are currently under review. As part of its commitment to fostering growth, the Exchange is providing all applicants with personalized coaching and feedback on their submissions and business strategies. This hands-on guidance, informed by real utility customer, buyer, and investor insights, aims to enhance each company's prospects for successfully commercializing their technologies with economic development goals. An economic development goal is to modernize its sophisticated energy grid while reinforcing its leadership in clean tech innovation, driving long-term economic development and sustainability. This concludes the Economic Development Report.
Thank you, Councillor Snow. Councillor Adams, Representative for Emergency Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. My apologies, I didn't stand up last time. I was digging through papers, so. I'll do fire services first, and thank you to Ron Culleton for submitting this. Summary of calls for January. During the month, firefighters responded to 29 calls, 7 medical first responder calls, 21 silent alarms, and 1 general alarm. Firefighters had 151 hours of training, a presentation on long-term care fires, winter maintenance on apparatus and equipment, a number of self-contained breathing apparatus sessions, and fitness classes while not wearing full bunker gear. And that would be it for fire.
And they did, in our package, he did have a breakdown of what the calls were, so we had sort of asked, we thought that would be sort of good to have on hand, so we can see exactly what our volunteers are being asked to do and their responsibilities they have to take on. And Summerside Police Services, and thank you to Chief Sinclair Walker for submitting this. The police service have been in talks regarding the e-collision reporting system. The program is free for police and allows a transition from handwritten collision reports that do not always collect the best data to an electronic version of collision reporting. This can be completed from a police vehicle or desktop computer. The Department of Transportation is hopeful that all island agencies will transition to this program, and Summerside Police and the RCMP are still in the information gathering stage, but we hope to have a decision reached soon. Aside from gathering more accurate data, the company will provide quarterly, or more often if we require, in-depth collision analysis data, which can be shared with stakeholders such as mayor and council. The hope is that the company will establish a collision reporting center somewhere in Summerside, where those involved in reportable collisions can go to report the collision and reduce the time spent by police at accident scenes and completing accident reports. The collision reporting centers are staffed by people hired by the company and at no cost to the police service or the city. Some background on Accident Support Services International. It's funded by the Insurance Bureau of Canada to reduce the number of frivolous and false injury/damage claims that result from collisions. They currently have collision reporting centers in place in most provinces, including a pilot program in Charlottetown that has been in place since summer of 2024. Police services have been accepted in the free program offered by the Canine Therapy for First Responders, and once Canine Lucy passes her training, she will be assigned to our police service as our facility dog. She is almost 7 months old and is 54 pounds. I don't know what Lucy is, other than a dog. So, what is Lucy? Do we know? A retriever, maybe? Okay. And you had dog lover behind me, so I was wondering, I thought you might know. Okay. Canine Lucy, or maybe it's down here. Canine Lucy has completed her level 1 obedience training and has just started her level 2 obedience training. Corporal Driscoll is the handler and has been with Lucy for the level 2 training and is starting on one-on-one training in February. Lucy's goal is to complete her training to become Summerside Police Services facility dog, which is for first responder stations, trained to a service dog level, then additional training to become a facility dog. Lucy will undertake a component of training for service dogs to assist persons with PTSD, anxiety disorders, etc. Our staff are excited about Lucy's arrival. Welcome, Lucy. What? So is Kristen. Kristen is too. Okay, good.
Thank
That's
you.
why I asked you. I figured you know what Lucy was.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, and all members of council here this evening for another interesting and productive meeting at Summerside City Hall. With this, we'll move into a brief in-camera discussion. This is only council, so I'd ask anyone who's not council to exit the room. This is one of the only opportunities council has to meet and talk about any issue of substance without anyone in the room, and that's because we always have to have our CAO unless we're talking about our CAO. So we just ask everyone to step out. Deputy